What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back once again, episode 122. I am your host, Anthony Trapani. What's going down? I'm here as always with at least a couple resident homies with me. Got Casey Howard and Joel Horner with me. What up, y'all?
Hello.
And another Thursday night and another legend alert, guys. We got Jason Gobel of Cynic, Monstrosity. All you have new projects that we're going to talk about. All that stuff, dude. Thank you so much for being with us, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, I said it on Paul's episode. I'm going to say it to you again. I've called Cynic my favorite band for 2+ decades. Over 20 years. Focus was a very, very important and still is a very, very important album throughout all the years that I've been involved in metal, and it still stands on top for me today as we talk.
Thank you so much.
I'm really, really excited to get into tonight for sure, dude. And but before we do that, let's do some plugs real quick. Let's do battleforgecoffee.com, the homies in D's of Flesh coffee company. They got good coffee, sick merch. Get over there and support the homies. For us, it's going to be CaliDeathPodcast.BigCartel.com. Still got a couple t-shirts in stock there. I don't know what sizes we still have, but they're still available. Full color design and the OG logo. If you guys want to support the show, that is the place to go. The only place to go, unless you want to send us money in the mail or something.
Is that illegal? Is that legal? I don't think
Or no, maybe you could hit up Joel on the side for a Venmo account or something like that. But yeah, that's where the main place you can put a little money into the pot. Then did I just freeze up again, motherfucker?
Ever at the starting, you freeze.
As I was saying, in the middle of that, you guys went to black for a second. I'm like, fucking frozen again. Am I frozen right now?
No, you're good.
All right. What else we got? We got Generator Rehearsal Studios. Casey and his homie are down there in what, Oceanside? Is that where it's at?
Yes, sir.
I remember that. Nice. Oceanside. You want to rehearse? That is the place to go because Casey will be involved and he will help you get a place to get your band to the sickest places it can get. I don't know. All right. And the tour that we're sponsoring too, got to give it up to the homies in Archaic headliner. They'll be going out. I don't have my glasses.
Yeah, it's March 11th starts and it's going all the way to March 28th.
There you go. So if you
February 11th, Jesus, my brain. I've been working hard all day.
February 11th to March what?
No, February. No, it's May 11th. Christ. Jesus, I am out of it. May 11th to May 28th.
Okay. May 11th to May 28th, the homies in Archaic are going to be shredding faces. And if you're at one of those places that I can't read right now, go to that place on that date because you will be very stoked.
Oh yeah,
sick, dude. Ricky's going to the Anaheim date. That's what's up. I'll be we're actually going to be seeing the Archaic dudes this next weekend.
Days. Yeah, the singer is getting married and Jared's getting married in a couple days. So
yeah, dude, congratulations to him and his future wife, and I can't wait to rage for your love. But Jason, dude, all right, we got through it all right?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, Jason, do you want to plug new stuff that you've been involved in that you want people to check out right now?
Actually, I don't have anything really to plug besides a band that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Should have a release, I would think, early 2024. And the band is called Amnion. And it's a few guys that I'm working with out of Germany. And it's not death metal. It's more of a fusion metal. But it's going to be a really cool project and looking forward to it coming out. And got some cool players on there. playing on the album, and should be a cool deal. But that's
How do you
the only
spell it? How do you, for the listeners, how do you spell it?
AMNION.
Okay.
Got it.
Cool. Is that something that you started and are like a part of the creation of it, or is it something that you joined after?
So actually, the band reached out to me. They had some issues with their guitar player was having some health issues or something like that, so he couldn't finish all the music on their album, and they were just interested if I might be willing to do it. And I said, hey, send me over the tracks. So basically, it was just drums and bass. They sent me a full song, drum and bass, already mapped out, and I basically wrote the guitars over the music.
Wow.
So it's been a different approach, but it's been really interesting because it already gives a structure for me to work over.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's it's someone else's complete song structure, it gives me a chance to kind of approach it differently than I would normally approach writing music. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense, and actually that's cool because as somebody who creates anything, you can fall into a certain thing that works the best for you, but actually I think that some of the coolest things come out of being put into an uncomfortable, you're not used to this type of environment or this way of doing things, and then
Exactly.
once you're on your toes, then that actually brings certain things to the surface that become greater than they could have been,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of that situation. I mean, these guys put together some great songs, and it's got groove, it's got odd meter. It's there's times when it's clean, times when it's pretty heavy, and definitely very fusiony styled.
Are they Florida based?
No, Germany.
Oh,
Germany.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're out of Germany, and so yeah, it's been a different way than instead of collaborating or writing with a few people together, kind of writing on top and weaving around and working around their structure and their tonalities on top of it and time meters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different. It's been different, but it actually the end product has been really cool. Like you said, it pushed me to approach things differently and to play a little differently on the music. And they are wonderful, wonderful guys. When they approached me, I told them, hey, listen, I really don't play as much, speed death metal, anymore. I'm kind of more into the fusion thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, listen, let's send you the music. If you like it, we'll go from there. And I liked what they sent me. And they said, do whatever you want. Play whatever you want. Just go. And I said, okay, I'm going to do just that. And they ended up liking it. So it's worked out real well. I'm doing 4 songs on the album. One of them, Santiago Dobles from Agora is playing on.
Wow.
With
okay.
me. And then he may be playing on this last song that I'm working on now as well, but we'll see how his time frame works out. But
I love Agora.
So
Agora's a great project.
Yeah. And Santi's a great player, so.
Yeah, he's a great player. I know that one. That's actually one thing I wanted to get into a little bit was like you post a lot of videos of him recording, right? You post a lot of the like him sitting at the computer, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And because of you posting those videos, I went and did a little research and was like, got into Agora and all other things that he was doing. And man,
really?
that guy's a player, man. That guy's a great player.
Oh yeah,
dude. He's like a producer mind, right? Too. He's like a producer.
Well, he's a total engineer. I mean, that's what he does for a living on the side. Is he goes and works stadiums and works all kinds of huge engineering gigs and TV shows and all kinds of. Yeah, he sent me a picture. He was filming Trump at one of his events and doing the audio for it and stuff like that.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
And then years ago he had his own studio, and so he's done the whole music engineer thing as well. So so he's a heck of a player, but he's a heck of an engineer as well.
Yep, and a heck of a writer too, dude. That guy can write really catchy songs.
you were saying that you just started. How you doing, guy?
Oh
Hey,
yeah,
what's up,
sorry,
man?
I
This
just
is our
introduce the
other host.
professor real quick. Joseph is here with us tonight. Joseph K, what's going on? Here's our. You have the full Cali Death host. Shindig. Oh, well,
Nice.
Casey's
Yeah.
gone right now, but
Hey, Jason.
That was cool.
you
Hey,
got
it's
us
an
all.
honor to
dude.
have you on, man. I'm a big fan, and
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
just got off work, did my best to get here on time. So
Glad you
Yeah.
made it.
Absolutely.
I'm
Thank
I'm,
you
I'm
for having
stoked
me.
you're here, dude.
cool. Well, I'm here for the ride, so wherever you guys were, just
Yep,
continue
we were
on.
talking about Santiago and Agora and
Oh, hell
and
yeah.
how he's involved in the new project that Jason's in as well.
Yeah, I've been
Which-
following that. I've been watching all the videos on Facebook. It's sounding
Mhm.
really cool so far.
Yeah, it should be a fun project, and looking forward to getting it out. Hopefully, early 2024.
Nice.
Oh
I know
yeah,
this
dude.
is more. This is more probably a question for like when we're in the timeline. There's a little crackling going on. It might be.
That's me.
Yeah, it is you.
No, we just lost him.
Yeah, 1 second. Cool.
No,
Um,
say your shit. Yeah.
So, you getting into fusion stuff, because I've always been like into that. Like, I mean, it started with like Al Di Meola, Jesus, Al Di Meola, and all these other kind of fusion projects and stuff. Was that kind of like a young, like, so when were you like into that stuff as a, because I can tell with Focus and stuff that has a lot of fusiony kind of vibes in it, and it seems like it's
Yes.
been with you for a long time.
Yeah. Actually, by the time we actually recorded Focus, we weren't even listening to much metal. We were always listening to jazz and fusion, and we were already doing the Holdsworth and Mahavishnu Orchestra and
Mhm.
all that type of stuff, um, and the straight ahead jazz and bebop and all that. But um, I think that we were metalheads, as kids for sure. I mean, I guess there's so much to it, but also growing up in Miami, all the different cultural background, and everything that we were exposed to, we were always open. And then when we wanted to explore music a little bit more, it was pretty much going to college time. It was pretty much jazz or classical.
Mhm.
And I remember I had walked by the classical guitar teacher, and he's sitting there, and his student's sitting there, and he's got a ruler that he's whacking the guy on the finger, and it was so structured. And then I looked into the room for jazz, and there was this guy, long hair, beard, sitting with a Steinberger, Dave Weisbrau, looking super chill, and they were laughing, having a good time, and I'm like,
That's where I'm going.
I want something more free and open or whatever, and ended up, started studying jazz from there, and
Yeah.
and
Well, Jason, let me cut you off right there real quick because
yeah.
just that's all great stuff, and we're gonna get to that. But how we do it on the show is we like to go back even further than that. So before Cynic, before everything, we want to know what was going on in your childhood at home. When did you discover music organically? What was that? Maybe not what was that, but just remember that time that like music actually pulled you in, at the
Actually,
youngest you can think of.
very young actually. Cartoons.
Yeah.
I loved cartoons. I loved Bugs Bunny. I loved um, gosh, what Tom and Jerry and the cartoons that had uh, the orchestras doing the music.
Carl
'cause
Stalling.
there you go.
Yep.
And that's what actually started really getting me into. I started wondering what all those sounds were, and I loved the music behind all the cartoons, and also I had young parents, so my mom was always playing music on the radio, and there was always the radio was always on. So very young, I was interested in music, and I remember listening and thinking, "What is making this sound? What is making that sound? Why is this in this pattern? Why is Had no clue at all. But
Great questions for somebody who doesn't, those questions will get you somewhere pretty fast. If those are your first questions about music,
yeah, well, I was just like, "What is this I'm hearing?" I mean, it was amazing to me, and yeah, so that's what kind of interested me in music, and then my brother started. He picked up bass, around 11 or 12, and I'm
Mhm.
like 3.5 years younger than him.
Okay.
And long story short, from there, I tried drums to begin with and realized I am not a drummer in any way. Um, but then 8 years old, I got a guitar because my brother was playing bass and drums didn't work out for me, and they had another guitar, and I wanted to be the other guitar player. I was the little brother that wanted to play, but that's when I got my first guitar, and
So let's go into like what your parents were listening to, some types of music that you were listening to before you picked up the guitar, because there was
okay,
obviously, so it was the cartoons, but was there anything else that your
yeah,
parents were listening
my,
to at home?
my mom was listening to. She was a young mom, so whatever was hip and was popular at the time. But I mean, it was everything from classic rock to Motown to um, uh, disco. Loved all the disco music, and so it was. I would say pretty much more on the pop side. More on the regular radio airplay at that time, and
Yeah.
we're talking probably 19. I was born in 1970,
Hmm.
so. So whatever, was going on around then, 5, 6 years old, 76, 77. Oh yeah, and actually she listened to a lot of AM radio too. So I heard like Jim Croce and ABBA and
Hmm.
Supertramp and all those kind of bands too. So
Right.
um, it was kind of a spectrum. And then of course, just growing up in Miami, there's always Latin played or at parties or at gatherings and stuff like that. So there was a lot of also just kind of being exposed to Latin music.
Did we lose him, or did we lose me?
Are we still here?
Fuck, dude, is it me?
No, it's not you.
Oh, okay.
No, it's
Jason's internet, perhaps.
yeah,
Probably.
all good.
Let me.
Yeah, I had some internet issues. I had to plug in just now.
It's all good. We'll
all good.
Oh,
figure
it
it out.
happens, man. We just
gonna-
will. Yeah.
I will message him right now. Well, without internet, he might not get it. It's all good.
I still
though,
think
dude.
like actually my favorite loss of internet was definitely the Alan Cassidy one where he was like he like
Yeah.
froze like doing a funny face. Yeah, we'll get him back. Text him right
it's
now.
all good.
Just
I
to
am.
reset, just usually you'll just pop back on.
Yeah. it's
So
all
how's it
good.
going, Joseph? Good to see you, man.
Oh, he's
I mean,
muted. He's muted. Jason's coming back right now.
He's back. I'm
All
good.
right.
All right, here we go. There we go. Got
There
you.
it is.
Guys, just lost you there. Sorry
It's
about
all
that.
It's
all good.
internet.
It's all good. It happens.
Yep.
Definitely happens.
So we were at 76, like what was popular then, and actually you started talking about ABBA and other bands that she was playing, but I forget where we went from there.
Well, it's just kind of you were asking, what kind of music was around me or had influenced
Mhm.
me, at my youngest point. I would say it was probably around then, 5 or 6 years old. A lot of the radio music, everything from pop, rock, Motown, disco that was being played to the AM radio type music, the old 70s AM music,
Mhm.
and cartoons, was kind of what got my ear pulled towards music. And then,
Right. And actually with everything that you mentioned too, Jason, like having the cartoon music as something else that you were interested, showing you that there's actually like intricacy in music, because the especially I mentioned stalling. Stalling is such a great example of how intelligent the music is written to these cartoons.
oh, it was insane.
It's insane, dude. It's so outside of like normal music writing for like,
Yeah.
because you're writing to the visuals.
Yeah, so think of your time structures. Think of how they're all over the place, man.
All over the place.
It's absolutely insane what they did back then.
Yeah, it's like previous, like where the Ron Jarzenbeck, kind of influence. I mean, that's where you could tell where he got
That's
a lot
where
of it
he
from.
got it from. Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell like his phrasing and stuff is just based on. I mean, Bambi and all that stuff that he did, but just taking like I mean, there was even it's like what's that one drummer I've talked about it before, but the drummer that played with Necrophagus for a little while,
Marco Miniman.
Marco Miniman, where he like does that one, that drum video where he just takes people saying things or funny noises and he makes the time signature behind it, and they're like, "What the fuck is this regular language?" But it's like a crazy. He's all, "Oh, this one's in the 1760s." This is, he's like, he like totally breaks it. He's all counting out. I'm like, "Holy shit, that's like
It's crazy how math can like organize things
that
for
with
us.
an orchestra. Yeah, with an orchestra for a whole, 4 or 5 minutes. How long's a cartoon? I don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
That is
Absolutely.
insane. To think of like an orchestra that just is ready to go, like play cartoon tunes, like all perfect, like lined up. Like it's gnarly, dude.
Like,
Yeah, that's how
imagine
they do it.
being a guy,
Yeah.
being the one guy in the orchestra where you're only supposed to like make the when like
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny wiggles his tail or some shit like that.
Right. Someone had to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck that part up. That's very important. Yeah.
Someone's getting yelled at for not getting that tail part right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no punching in,
Maybe.
So that's cool, dude. Okay, so then, all right. So fast forward a little bit. You just you see your brother and you want to follow suit. He's playing bass, you said, and I'm like,
Yeah, he was playing bass, and actually, I remember watching a commercial, a Kiss commercial. Kiss was coming. It was 1978. I remember it was Kiss Alive or something, and they were coming to Miami, and there was a commercial, and I saw him on stage, and Gene spitting blood and shooting fire, and Ace Frehley with the smoking guitar, and I remember that's when I was like, man, now that would be fun, playing live, doing something like that, and that kind of inspired me, that and of course, my brother playing too and all that, and so I just ended up asking for a guitar, and finally my grandfather bought me my first guitar when I was 8 years old, and that was it. I actually got one lesson. I got one lesson. We had someone come to our house, and he taught me some open chords like an open E, open G, open A, open D, and then showed me the two jobber bar chords and a major and a blues scale.
Nice.
And that's all that I had. That was the only real direction I had. How to hold the pick and how to play it. But I had one lesson, and from there I played on my own until I was in junior high. My first year of junior high, they had a guitar class, so I went in to take the beginner's guitar class. The guitar teacher watched me play, and he said, "You can't be in this class. You have to be in the advanced class."
oh,
Damn.
And so I went into the advanced class, and I still was more advanced than the kids that were playing there. And the problem I had was that I only had one lesson. So everything that I had learned, I learned by ear.
mm-hmm.
So everything that they were teaching in the class, if I could hear it, I could figure it out and play it. I never needed to read the notes, the paperwork.
Yeah.
I really didn't get much direction in the class. It was like an hour I had every day to jam at school. But that was most of the direction I had until college.
So building up to,
but mostly I've been an ear player.
I was gonna say, so Jason, building up to that junior high situation.
There you go. Okay, sorry, lost your audio for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, moving to junior high, what was that process of you? You took your one lesson, and then you were saying that you were just playing on your own. Were you just learning? You said you were learning by ear, so it would just be random songs that you just grab and be like, I want to learn that, and you just sit there and
figure them out.
Wow.
Yeah, I would just figure out songs. I mean, this is back before computer days and YouTube and all that type of stuff. So
right.
So good old tape deck and
do you remember the first song you learned by ear?
No, not really.
Or one that stands out from that era, maybe that you got excited about learning?
Geez. I can't really pull anything out, to be honest with
That's
you.
all
You know,
right. That's all right. I just
think,
figured maybe we can get one of those in there.
yeah,
That's
I mean,
fine, though.
I think, actually, Styx, Sweet Madam Blue, I figured out. That was one of the ones I enjoyed. Have a Cigar, Pink
Oh, I just
Floyd,
listened to that song 2 days ago, dude. I fucking love
great
that
song,
song,
yeah,
dude.
Great song.
song. But you know, stuff like that, like all the classic rock music, and that's what kind of pushed me towards metal. So I'm in junior high. I'm playing music. I started. I could I could actually, when I was younger, I could sing better than I could play. So my brother, still being a few years older, he had his early high school bands, and I ended up singing for them. It's funny, there was the guitarist at the time was a better guitar player than me, but he wanted to sing, and I was a better singer than him, but I wanted to play guitar, you know. But so you know, I kind of did the whole rock scene, you know, the classic, the metal, the Dio, the Ozzy, all that type of stuff, and was learning and playing guitar the whole time as well. And that's when I started to get bored with with it. You know, it just wasn't stimulating to play, and I wanted more. And that's when I ended up pushing towards the heavier side of metal and getting into, you know, even started easy with, you know, like the Metallicas and Megadeth, and then
Mhm.
you know, progressed from there into
Was
the
your
faster.
was your brother listening to all that stuff at the same time?
No.
No?
So my brother ended up he ended up going the other direction, and he ended up playing more in the commercial rock scene, like the old um, you know,
Glam rock?
like the glam stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
he ended up going in more in the glam direction.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's when we kind of separated. By the time I was in ninth, 10th grade, you know, I was already heading in a different direction.
So you were
Um,
discovering the metal on your own, though? Or did you have a friend that you were
I was discovering it on my own, believe it or not.
Wow.
I didn't have anybody that was into the heavier stuff, and I just started actually um, looking for heavier stuff, and then I had found, you know, like you have your standouts that would always stand out, you know, like Slayer and, you know, stuff like that. You know, the big guys back then was
Mhm.
where I started, but I didn't really have many friends that listened to metal, so I kind of started with that, and then I would go to the record shops and just look for the most brutal album covers I could find, and you know what I mean, and just start
Yeah.
digging out bands.
That's actually literally something that no matter what age you are, it always is something that we hear on this show is going to the record store and going off of album covers, logos, and song names and record
Yep,
labels, you know?
that's all. Yep, go for producer, record labels, song names, album covers, just anything that looked heavy. And back then, that was it. You took a gamble and you bought it. And you had either an album or you know, a cassette, and whether you liked it or not, you listened to it. You listened to it many times before you said, okay, I don't think I like this, or I do like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't like today where there's so much at your fingertips for free. You know?
I would never I always was like that too. I wouldn't just make my judgment the first listen. Be like, okay.
Yeah, you
Unless it's
gotta
just
listen.
something that's really, really terrible, obviously.
Yeah, really
But it's
terrible,
kinda
really stupid, but
yeah, it those I really love thinking about that time in my life though too, of how it felt when you came home and you had the CD or the record that looked good in the store, and then you put it on and it's even better than you thought it was gonna be, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. And then just the fun of reading the album, and you know, the record in the sleeve, and you know, all the information on there, and
Mhm.
it's a different experience. It's that I guess the younger generation doesn't really get to experience as much today, you
Right,
know,
right.
or a massive record store, you know, record
Yeah.
shop to go look through. That you don't see too often.
The only bummer about CDs was that they get scratched. You know, remember
Yeah.
that? So annoying. I
Yeah.
bought Pearson Within like 3 times. Damn it, dude.
You bought what?
a suffocation pierced from.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I seriously bought that at least twice or 3 times.
And that's funny that you say that because I've bought
Yeah.
Focus like 4 or 5 times, and currently have like 4 copies of it. And
Oh,
all the
geez.
I have the like re-release with all the extra tracks and my one clean original version, you know, all that kind of
Oh,
shit. But I'm
wow.
still like over the years I think that Focus is probably the one that I've most repurchased just because it's gotten
That's
so
crazy.
torn up.
You've got more than I have. Collectibles or copies, you know.
Yeah.
I think I got a couple discs. I think I got a Japanese version or whatever, and
Yeah.
and I have one of the first print, and I think one of the second print or something like that
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
But
God, I love it so much. That's why I own so many, dude.
The worst was those CD booklets. They seemed convenient.
Yeah.
And they just like scratch the shit out of your CDs. Like the worst were the ones that would like go on above the car, like or on the visor.
Oh, the visor. Yeah.
You're just like
Right.
pulling them out and just putting them in. Like you go camping and just like dust getting in, and it's just. Psh.
You ever
That's
heard of a
weird.
thing? I'm sorry to go into the weeds on CDs, but I heard this other thing recently that I didn't even know was a thing. It's called CD rot. Like your CDs can actually just rot over
Oh yeah.
time.
Probably from
Oh, I-
moisture or something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't want my shit to rot, dude.
Does everybody here still own CDs?
I'm gonna buy a
I have some.
Demi.
I got
one of
some.
my rooms is gonna be the humidity controlled shit where I keep all my
Just
physical
CDs.
stuff.
Okay.
There'd be like a couple cigars in there, some CDs.
I bet your wife is stoked on that whole thing.
Yeah, dude, I gotta put it 2 kids in one room to make that happen. But
Yeah, so they double up. Bunk beds.
They'll understand later on in life.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. No, but
All
I mean,
right.
even before that, though, I mean, there was, when I was first getting into music and stuff, it was, I mean, CDs were probably brand new, like, but it was, the tapes and the, like, listening to the tapes. And remember when, like, you'd be listening to a tape, you'd be all stoked on, and all of a sudden start speeding up and be like, and it would just get eaten, like,
Yeah.
it'd just be ruined just because of the player,
Oh, yeah. Lost many
You
a
know,
tape in my day.
Yeah, I had to like rewind them. Like you had to like put work into them to like fix them.
The pencil in.
Yeah, the pencil.
Fit them back
Exactly.
in. Yeah.
That was a life hack back then. I know that
Yeah.
with CDs though, there'd be that one CD why like Casey would buy 4 of them is because there's like one part that you're looking forward to and it's like yep. You're like, oh, you get so mad that you're like, I gotta rebuy this because like I need that part. Like I need to go back and they were expensive back then. They weren't cheap,
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
So
back on the
I was gonna say back on to Jason because we just went into the weeds like usual.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. So all right, you're discovering all the more extreme stuff on your own, and it's just by luck of the draw type deal. Going to record stores, reading magazines, probably that type of shit.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Gosh, around in my teens, I had some challenges. Normal stuff. Growing up challenges. A couple friends died, and stuff like that. So I was kind of in a loner stage, and I was just playing guitar, man, and hunting down music, and it's funny. That's about the time that I ended up running into Paul and Sean. Because I was playing a lot. I was playing metal, but I was pretty much just playing at home alone. I was just woodshedding, it's just jamming.
Mm.
And my brother was still playing actively in local bands and stuff like that. So he ended up. They used to have keg parties, where people would they'd get an open field, they'd bring a bunch of kegs, set up a stage. 5 bands would come and play. They charge $5 a head to get in, and that's how shows just would pop up everywhere back in the day. All the local shows. So my brother ended up playing a show with Cynic. They ended up in their very early days, and I think it was Paul Sean, it was Mark Van Erp and Jack Kelly.
Yep.
wow.
and they had just done the first demo
I
or
was going to
something
say
like
that's
that.
the 88 lineup right there.
Right, right. And so
Yeah.
what happened was Cynic actually played the slot before my brother's band, and as my brother was walking on stage and they were walking off, my brother goes, "Hey, if you guys are looking for another guitarist, you should talk to my brother because he loves playing that pissed off shit that you guys play." Is what he said. And they said, actually, we are looking
So
for a
funny.
guitarist. So after my brother played, he ended up walking Paul and Sean over, and that's how we ended up meeting.
Wow.
And then that's when I got excuse me.
Did you see Cynic before you met them? Did you
That
see them
night.
play that night?
Yeah, that night I
Okay.
saw him.
How was
I
your
saw-
how was your reaction to that?
It was interesting because it was actually, wow, fuck, finally someone that's playing stuff that I want to play. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mhm.
Because a lot of it was the glam rock and stuff, and I just hated it. You know, I hated
Yeah.
the 80s metal or whatever, rock or. But so yeah, I had actually watched them, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. They're playing some aggressive stuff, and they're going for it, and so it was a surprise to me, and my brother ended up walking them over to me, and we ended up talking that night, and we set up a jam. I went by the warehouse and jammed with them, and I think there was a couple other guys they were playing with, also that they were considering. Um, but we got together to jam, and it was interesting. They kind of just sat down and said, "Play something," and I was like, okay, we're not even going to jam. It was just like me play something for them or whatever. I mean, you were kids. We were 16, 17, something like
Right.
that. So I just ended up playing some of the stuff that I write. I started playing some of my ideas because I didn't know any, couldn't think of anything else to play. So I ended up playing a few of my ideas, and then they ended up going, well, did you actually wrote that? And I'm like, yeah, those are my ideas. And they really liked it. And I think from there we jammed a little bit, and then the next day they called me and said I was in.
Wow. So, like,
Pretty much
could you?
and so back to the music side of it, um, that's when I got exposed to a lot more metal. Even with Paul and Sean, those guys were tape trading and had been following the scene even longer than me.
Right.
But yeah, I got exposed to even more metal.
Oh yeah. I
Back
was
in
going to
those
say
days.
that probably
We
was a
devoured.
deep download for you because the tape trading thing became reality for you at that moment, right?
You cut off for a second, but what about the tape trading?
I was saying that that must have been a deep download for you because the tape trading thing probably you didn't even really know about it at that time.
No, I didn't. I didn't even know. I mean, I had heard about it, but I had no way of knowing. I guess you got to get your first tape trading zine, fanzine or whatever, and then you're kind of looped in. As long as you don't lose that, you can connect and all that. But if you didn't have it or anything, and I'd never even seen it before, seen one of them before, and then when I met Paul and Sean, they both were into the scene, so they ended up giving me, a copy or whatever, and I started ordering and doing some tape trading as well. Um, but yeah, it was like wow, it was amazing, And back then it was different, You had to send, put money in an envelope, send it. Hopefully they get it. Hopefully they send it back. You never know when you're gonna get it. It could take a week, it could take 3 months.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different game back then. But no, that was actually really cool because I was really looking for something more musically challenging, whether it was faster, more technical, or whatever the classic rock thing wasn't doing it. So having this whole now kind of plethora of heavier music available to me was actually really cool.
Totally.
I definitely dug
Hey,
it.
go ahead, Joseph.
Can I ask about your impressions of like some of the stylistic elements of death metal, like the vocal style, the down-tuned guitars? Like, how did do you remember like hearing maybe like Cannibal Corpse for the first time, or like Obituary, or what was it? And like, what was your reaction to like that kind of like OG death metal when you first heard it? Was it like, oh, I immediately like this, or was it like, whoa, that's way too crazy?
That's gonna take some time.
That's a good question. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
you
is.
know, I think it kind of just evolved with me, you know, because it was a constant evolution. I was constantly listening and getting to heavier stuff. So by the time I ended up, you know, crossing paths uh, with like Cannibal and, you know, Death and all those guys,
Mhm.
I dug it. I definitely dug everything they were doing. You know, I thought it was super cool. Um, but I don't think I was shocked because it was part of the scene. It was common. I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
That-
it does.
It's funny because our last guest was like a jazz guitarist who his first death metal wasn't until he was like 27 and you heard Defeated Sanity. So it's
Which is
You-
an insanely crazy band, Jason.
and
Sounds
Sick
like
though.
yeah. But it sounds like you had a more like most of our guests they hear Metallica, then Slayer, and then Death or whatever. So it sounds like it's a step-by-step thing for you. But it definitely seems like there's a crossing over point where it's like the detuned guitar has become a, you know, everyone's detuning, everyone's doing the growls. And that's, you know, a lot of people it's either you like that or you don't, and some people can just never seem to get into it, and other people it's like once you get into that, everything else you stop liking or whatever. So
You know, I never did the detune guitars. I never never played a 7 string or anything like that. And I see the benefit of it, especially depending on the style of music you're playing. If you want to get that really low, you know, low tone, but for me, it was never a big interest. But the detuning and all that came pretty much way after I was already kind of out of the metal scene.
yeah.
And so I heard it and could appreciate it, but I never really played it or desired to play it. You know, even playing now, coming back, I really don't care to play 7 strings. I don't care to detune. You know, I feel like there's still so much to learn on just 6 strings. I can barely play on 6 strings. Why do I want to add another one?
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
but you know, each their own. You know.
Definitely.
Of course.
All in like E standard or like E flat or drop D, because those are kind of still like normal, right? You know, like
Yeah.
for 6 string at least, you know. So for you, Jason, do you always play an E standard, or like do you?
Pretty much always E
Yeah.
standard.
I do
Yeah.
too mostly. Yeah.
Always E standard. It's just, you know, I mean, it's again.
Yeah.
I mean, there are benefits, I guess, if you do want to detune, or I could even understand. You said people are playing in E flat.
Yeah, or just like, you know, like
Yeah.
yeah, like E
Slayer.
standard, E flat, or say like just drop D in standard, or drop D in or
Right.
drop D flat, or whatever C sharp.
See, I tried to get one of those drop D Eddie make it.
Yeah, where you
drop
just hit it and it just drops you
Yeah.
immediately.
Oh, that's-
Ituna, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was getting, I had a futon tremolo built, and I tried to get the drop D on there, and I had to end up taking it off because it wouldn't fit with my guitar for some reason. So that I'm not against, but you know, it would be for certain tunes or for a certain feel or anything like that. But yeah, besides that, I don't think I would ever really detune or go too much lower. You know?
So for me, actually, I have a question, because I know that, you know, you, like back in the day, Cynic was the one, and now it's like a everyday. I have a headless guitar, like, you know, everyone's got a headless guitar now. But those Steinberger, those old ones, right?
Yeah.
Those, who was that already kind of like was that a thing that you and Paul decided on back like then? That's like a, you know, I remember like a lot of the jazz players were using it, or some, not a lot, but
the
some of the jazz
the
using.
Strandbergs or the
No, it was
Yeah,
Steinberger
Oh,
first, and then Steinberg
Steinberger.
later.
Oh,
Yeah,
The
later, yeah.
The
I didn't know.
Steinberger thing is,
Yeah.
remember I mentioned looking into the guitar class and looking at the classical teacher and then looking at the jazz teacher. Jazz teacher was playing a Steinberger. He
That's
was
right.
actually playing the Steinberger that Paul played on the Focus tour.
Okay.
Paul ended up buying the Steinberger from our.
It's like the small body one, like a super small
cool.
body one, or was
No, it was your Strat, you know, kind of Strat
Strats?
kind
Okay.
of body one, and it was the one that had all kinds of green and
Yeah, that's
different
right.
colors,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
flatter paint or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we ended up getting into Steinbergers. Was we were taking taking guitar lessons at Miami-Dade Community College from incredible guitar teacher Dave Weisbrau, and he had that Stein, and we'd trade guitars. Through the lesson, we'd trade guitars back and forth, and he'd want to check out ours, and we ended up playing the Stein, and we both fell in love with them. They were just they won. They played well. They were really comfortable. Not a huge guy, or whatever. I don't like big, heavy guitars, So they were really comfortable. They played well. The trans trem was the thing that was actually really interesting. Was bending the chords in key, where they're not actually going out of tune.
Right. Yeah, Paul talked about that. Yeah, the certain tremolo back then. Yep.
Yeah, and they're built like a tank, man. The the guitars are insanely strong. It's insanely well built. The old ones, and yeah, that the headstock thing was it was just by chance. It was just by chance that that was the guitar that Dave was playing, and we both ended up playing it and loved it. And then without having the headstock, for me immediately was a benefit. It's just smaller, it's easier to move around. You pack it into a little tiny gig bag, throw it over your shoulder, throw it up in top of a plane, and take it with you, when you travel. So
how many inches is a headstock normally on a guitar?
About 5 or 6, probably.
Yeah, I would say at least 5 or 6.
Difference.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's actually now I got my Strandberg now, because actually it was watching. I was standing behind Paul, kind of on the side once, and I noticed the weird neck, how it kind of like followed your thumb. It was kind of in that diagonal. The C shape was diagonal, kind of, and I was like, "What is that?
Yeah,
like a special thing?" And this was like 2010 or 11 or something. I was like, "Is that normal?" Like, but like, but I always see my Strandberg here, and I'm like, it just seems it's so light, and it's just like out of all the guitars to like grab and like set up, I'm just like, I just grab the easy one, like play the easy one.
Yeah, and they sound really good.
They do.
They definitely sound really good, and yeah, they're super easy and convenient. And tough as nails. So yeah, it was by chance. So Paul ended up buying Dave's Steinberger, and I was still playing. I had an ESP M1 Custom that I had made, and I was still playing that. And Chris Kringle, the bass player that played with us on the Portal tapes, he worked at, it's in Milwaukee. It was some music store in Milwaukee at the time. And he calls me up one day, and he goes, bro, someone just brought in a Steinberger, and they only want $600 for it. And I was about to say, bro, I'll take it. He said, it's in the mail to you. If you don't like it, send it back. He says, if you don't like it, send it back. But I already sent it to you, because if I didn't, someone would have grabbed it already. So he
that sounds like
sent it to me.
That sounds like somebody. That sounds like somebody named Chris Kringle would do.
I was gonna make the same joke.
That's a good friend, yeah, and yeah, that's another joke on him. But yeah, so he said, if you don't like it, send it back. I'll sell it for way more than that. But so he ended up sending it to me and only charged me the $600 that the guy wanted, and I still have it. It's sitting right over there in the room.
Oh man!
But
nice.
But yeah, that's how I ended up getting mine. So it was just by chance that, like I said, we ended up getting to play the Steinbergers, from our teacher. We both fell in love with them. We both got them. So it wasn't planned in any way, but it's funny. I guess it's definitely become a old Cynic focus thing, the headless guitars, before they were as popular as they are today, I guess.
I mean, just
That's
like the
the first
music
time I
is
saw it.
too. And just like the music has kind of caught on, I mean, people were obviously way into it back then, but now it's like this resurgence of like this focus. People are like, oh, focus. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's been amazing forever. I mean, a lot of people are just kind of like, it's got kind of like that, big,
it was a great start.
it's like the Big Lebowski vibe to it, where like Big Lebowski like bombs in the theaters. All of a sudden, it's the most purchased DVD 10 years later. You know what I mean? It's one of the, kind of that kind of story behind it.
That's exactly what it took. It took about 10 years before people started to really pick up and appreciate focus. We had good following and people that appreciated it when we were doing it, but it was not. It really took 10 years before a bigger amount of people actually grabbed onto it.
And we're that generation, dude. We're the 10 years later. We're the guys that
Right.
we were born too late to experience it in the moment, but we were lucky enough to find it and have the capacity to, you know, understand what was going on with that record and know that still, well, actually at that time I had no idea that still, you know, going another 15 years, 20 years later, that yeah, I'm 20 years later than that. It still bears fruit for me, you know. When I listen to Focus, there's still so much that I haven't fully, you know, tallied on my tally sheet of what I can point out on Focus, you know. And that's what I love about it.
Amazing to me. You know, I am absolutely amazed at how well the album has done over the years, or how much, you know, cult, I guess, popularity it's gained over the years, and that it's stood up as strong as it has. I mean, we were just trying to play what we wanted to play and do our thing. You know what I mean? And
that usually is. That usually is the answer that for somebody, because you don't realize what you're making while you're making it, you know?
Yeah,
it's just in the moment you're creating something, you don't realize what kind of impact it's going to have. But I mean, you can have a guess with the impact that it's giving you yourself as the artist, you know, if it's connecting with you, because we as artists, I was just talking to Cameron Argon, aka Big Chocolate. We've been in touch since he's been on the show, and that's one thing that I was talking to is like we don't always make things that we have a deep connection with, you know. We may look back in our catalog and like I can connect with certain things that I've done more than others, and just to have something like that, it as an artist, I'm jealous, and I'm also still striving to have it, you know.
It's crazy. Like it's crazy to me that I'm here now talking to you guys about an album that was recorded 30 years ago now.
Right.
Jeez, yeah.
You know, that's and I mean, to me, the music industry has not been fruitful for me as far as monetarily. You know, no matter
right,
which is fine, but in other words, what I'm saying is it's more valuable to me to have an album that stood up this well and have people still interested or still think that it was a really cool thing 30 years later. That's more valuable to me than the money I could have made, or you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And,
most definitely.
For sure.
And it's quite shocking when, as challenged as we were when we released the album, and how long it took to take off. In the beginning, we would have never thought it would have done this well. You know, like after our tour and some of the experiences we had on tour, you would have never thought that it was going to take off the way that it did, or at least stand the way that it did. You know,
Mhm.
and it's just amazing to me.
So, Joseph, you go for it, bro.
I just want to pile on the Focus nostalgia / worship.
Do it.
So I got the record, the CD, when I was 15 in 2005. And I had heard about it on the internet. So I was one of those, that's the first generation of people who were like by themselves kind of discovering bands like Cynic. And you guys, there was the website Cynical Universe that was active back then. And I remember getting the entire guitar tabs for the album in PDF form. And I had a guitar, and I would just learn Paul's part and then your parts, Jason. And it just completely blew my mind how intricate the two guitars on the record are. And sometimes it felt like I would just be like, how could you come up with playing this while Paul's playing that, or maybe vice versa? But what's going on? It seems like there's two different songs happening at the same time. And it's stuck with me to this day. I still see Focus as the pinnacle of two guitar writing
Counterpoint,
in metal.
interesting. Well, I mean, we wrote. It would depend. Some rhythms you would write, or we would write, Paul and I would already hear the other guitar. So you would write both guitar parts. He did it and I did it, and then there are parts that I would just write a rhythm, and then he would write his part to it, or he would write a rhythm and I would write my part to it. And then in the song writing structure, when we started structuring all the rhythms together, the transitions are where you get a lot of the intertwining, of those parts, and that was through playing them over and over and changing this rhythm to that rhythm and put this one before that one, and we get a like a chalky race board, chalkboard, and we would write all the rhythms down, and we'd change it all around, and but yeah, it was I don't know, it's just the way that we wrote. It wasn't necessarily intertwined that way to be technical or to be. It's just he would give me a part and I would write what I hear to it. And a lot of times when I write music, when I look at writing, especially with another guitar, I look at writing in between his notes. You want to fill the space, the open space, or play when the other is not playing, or and then if you can do a counterpunctual type thing, that's another way to play around, the other players. And that was something that we didn't ever really want to do, is play too many parts in unison as a guitar. I mean, that's just done. What's the point of having two guitars unless it's an impact moment in the song? But what's the point of having two guitars play the same thing the whole time? So I think it's just the way we thought and the way that we wrote. Even if I wrote a counterpart part to a rhythm that I had previously written, I would still try to play around the space and play around the other notes. And then once I give that part to Paul, and the same thing vice versa that he'd give to me, we would take the idea. So if I wrote both parts, okay, Paul, this is your part, he would take the part that I gave him, and then he's going to do his thing a little bit with it. And, still we played, pretty much still played the same part, but you put your own feel and your own vibe. We're always open to changing things. And so that's how the rhythms actually would get stuck together. And then as we would play them hundreds of times, we used to play 5 to 6 nights a week, 2 sets a night. We would run through before tour and while we were writing and getting ready for the album. We were always in the warehouse. But by playing it so many times, those parts evolve and you hear things and you okay, now I can grab onto Sean that's doing that kind of rhythm there. We can grab onto that, and then Paul can grab it. So it was a constant evolution until we got in the studio, and it still evolved in the studio. For that matter, But
that's and as far as like we had the sorry to cut you off. The textures, obviously that was like the first one that me and my best friend Carrie, we were like in our room just like finding these gorilla tabs, like just like finding these tabs of it, and we learned our own versions of it. And we had Paul on and stuff, and since then we've been in contact, and I decided to purchase the Focus Guitar Pros. I was like, I want to buy those and get all the parts that I kind of was weird on and just get them ironed out. And they were so different. I was hearing notes or playing notes that were the other guitar player was doing. I was basically just like a amalgamation of both guitars.
That's how most people play it. It's funny. It's always interesting to me to watch someone play. Someone will say, "Hey, I'm playing Paul's part on this song," or "I'm playing Jason's part on this song," and you watch it, and it's always a mix mash of both of our parts. And I understand. I mean, it's the same instrument. We had similar sounds and all that. But I haven't seen many people be able to figure it out by ear, at least, or who is playing what. That always seems to be the biggest question. Who's playing what?
We got a friend.
I had to text Paul to be like, dude, is this correct? Because my whole life is a lie. Because I've been like, I've known for the last 15 years. I've been like, this has been my warm up, like the textures thing, and it's like, oh shit, they're mixing. Like he's playing that now. Like, no. I was like actually kind of like freaked out by it, and I was like, Paul, is this correct? He's like, yep, this is I made this is how it was done. And I was like, oh my god. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's you've got so many
Sick.
positions on the guitar. It just depends where you decide to play it. If you decide to play it in a, for example, just a higher position, then the whole picking is off, or the whole uh, fingering of the part
definitely.
is off. So
Mhm.
it's hard. I understand. It's not easy to just figure it out and actually figure it out in the right range on the guitar. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Okay, we geeked out on Focus, and we're gonna do it again, I'm sure. But we skipped over a bunch, guys. I want to know about
So
how you were
it was
during
him
the
and
demo.
Paul together, right? It was him and he met Paul, and they're doing the demo, like they're getting ready for the demo now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
That's
the
not like-
next, I wanted to get into what was getting the next demo together, because you picked up with them right after the '88 demo, you said.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
was how much were you involved? Did they have stuff already written? Did you contribute ideas to that demo as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, so from that point on, it was a collaboration. Those songs were all once I joined in. So for me, I've always been someone that I can produce a lot of music. I can write a lot of music and write a lot of music fast. Ideas just if I get the flow, ideas come out, and I'll just start stamping out ideas. So I always had a lot of music to offer. So as soon as I joined the band, Paul and I would start, working. I mean, at that time, um, we had Van Earp, and Van Earp would also contribute, and then we had Tony Choi, and Tony Choi would also contribute um, to the music as well. But yeah, as soon as I jumped in, it was a collaboration from then, until the Focus album. So yeah, so I contributed just as much as anyone else on those demos that I played on.
Killer.
Um, yeah,
Nice. Fuck
I
yeah.
love
and
I love
so yeah,
listening to
we
those
got together.
demos, dude.
Yeah.
We started jamming. We started to play live, and as soon as we got a few songs together, that's when we put together the first demo that I had played on.
Tell me about the first time your bro came to watch you on stage with Cynic.
Huh. I think. Well, so I think that I think he actually came by the rehearsal space
Okay.
before he saw us live. But then, yeah, he saw us live quite a few times. And my brother, I mean, he's still an active musician, still an active player. He's more of a, I would say, an R&B funk type bass player. Um, so it was never his gig, It was definitely never his
Right.
gig. He would always, he'd definitely support and show up to shows and all that. And he had a lot of respect. He was like, I don't dig the music as much, and I don't dig the vocals as much, especially demo days when we were, just it was all
All
brutal.
death vocals, yeah.
But he appreciated our musical ability and technical playing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
he actually he always was like, and that drummer, man, that fucking drummer, he's like, he's amazing. So my brother actually did he had done a bass demo of his own. It was something that he wrote, and he was really big into the tapping. He was a big
Mhm.
tapper, and he ended up writing this whole piece. He was going to go into a studio and record it. He needed someone to play drums, um, and I ended up telling him, bro, you want someone that'll smoke on that? It's Sean, dude. And he's like, really? You guys wouldn't care? And we're like, why would we care? Of course, I guess people are weird like that as far as like playing with other bands or playing with other people. As
Yeah.
long as you were dedicated to our band, that was your priority. Go play with everybody, man. I mean, there's nothing. We never had a problem with that. And so Sean actually went in the studio and recorded, and it was like this. It was basically bass and drums. It's tap bass and drums. And my brother has a recording of it still. I'm trying to get it digitized because it's awesome. And Sean Reiner kills on that thing, and
Hmm.
did a great job for my brother. But yeah, so my brother he always appreciated what we did. It just was never his gig.
Yeah. Well,
And
hey,
I was always
I just,
he
yeah,
was,
I mean, I just was one, and for him to still say respect, that's the main thing, right? That's the only
Yeah.
thing you would want your bro to do is, hey, we're both musicians. You may not dig my shit, but check me out. You know, I'm doing it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and I
Yeah.
always supported him with his music, and we've always understood that we're kind of, on different paths musically, which sucks because we've never really gotten to do anything professionally together.
Mm-hmm.
But um, but yeah, we've always had a big respect for each other and for each other's styles and playing,
Well,
and
after
he does
hearing
all
that, I'm sure I'm not the only one to say that I would really hope that gets digitized because I'd love to hear that little deep cut of your brother and Sean on a track or something, dude.
Yes,
That'd be
and,
crazy.
and actually for all the fans of Sean Reiner, it would be a really cool thing. It's a really cool. It's just one. I think it's one or two little tunes, or it's just instrumental drums and
Either
bass.
way,
But it's
dude.
pretty cool, and it'd be great to share. So yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna contact my brother and see if he's digitized it yet, or
Nice.
because that would be a
Please
nice
do,
thing
dude.
to put out. Put out just in Sean's memory.
Oh, for sure, dude.
Great.
I think that with everything that's happening now with the 30-year anniversary thing, Sean's going to be in a lot of conversations more than he already has been since, so yeah, dude, I'm always down to get a little bit more of that guy, get a little bit
And
more of anything from that era, and the fact that he's your brother's on it too, it's still in the family to me, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
And it's back in the day. It's pre-focus. It's back in the demo days.
mhm.
So you get to hear some young Reiner there. But yeah, I need to follow up on that again with my brother and get that out. That would be a wonderful thing for all his fans.
Oh
And
yes, definitely.
I just wanted to shout out Jason. You've done a lot of really cool archival releases online over the last few years, and every time you've released a video of some studio footage or pictures or anything, I'm always happy to see it. So I really appreciate you putting that out there for all of
Yeah,
us.
go follow Jason if you're a
Total
big Cynic
heads.
fan. If you're like want to see like the old school, like he'll throw random stuff on there. What he's doing currently, it's like I randomly was like, oh, Jason Gobel's on Facebook. I started following you and stuff and seeing the things that you post. I'm like, every time you post something, I'm like, I'm so interested. And you'll
Yeah.
do a lot of throwbacks on there too, where it's like you guys in the studio doing your forums or something. It's stuff like that where
Yeah.
I'm just like loving it. It's like great things to just the monotonous scrolling on the the brain sucker tablet, like you get actual good information and good things from it. So yeah, follow Jason.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, so now we're moving out of no, we're still in the demo area, but the first demo was put together. You guys were doing shows and all that stuff. So how long before you guys decided to get stuff together for the next one?
Geez, man, that the timeline and the dates. I'm not sure how long because we would do the demo. We would play like every gig we could play with anybody anywhere that we could play with, and until we could get up enough money and write enough music for the next demo. Timeline I don't really remember, but really, I mean, what did we do? We did Reflections. Was a first. The second was actually recorded at Miami Dade. Sean, Paul, and I took a multi-track production techniques course, and basically it was engineering in a studio, and the ending project had to be a song. You had to have a song, whether you got a band to play or whether you did it or whatever. But you have to record a song and turn it in as your final project. So we all three took the course and we all recorded one of our songs, and that's how we made the second demo. Was pretty much recorded and engineered by us in a college little tiny studio. And then I think our third
Is that
was
the
with
90 demo with
I could be
Lifeless
wrong on
Irony
that.
and all that?
Remember,
Oh.
Jesus, it's been so long. Because what Burns did one of our demos.
Yeah, that was the 91 demo.
That was so that had to be the 90 demo. It
Yeah,
was
that one,
the one with the
Lifeless
reflections and the one
Irony.
before.
Reflections, yeah.
There you go.
90.
There you go.
Reflections
that-
of a
that one-
dying world.
That was the cheapest way we could record a demo, was record it ourselves. So we ended up doing that, and then same thing, man. We just played with everybody. We played every gig. We played every show, and back then you were playing shows with hardcore bands, with I
Right.
mean, just everything that anyone could decide to play with, we'd go and play. And I mean, we were getting a following locally. We had a pretty good following. We had a pretty good turnout. People liked us, and I think that's when we started getting recognition, and that's when like the opportunities to start playing with other bands came in, like Death and Monstrosity and Atheist and Pestilence, and all that stuff came up. What happened was we were playing with so many of the bigger bands, and we were already friends with Cannibal and Death and Obituary, and the Tampa bands. And then we had a place here, Cameo Theater on Miami Beach. They would have the metal shows, and they got to know us as a band that would show up. We'd play. We were tight, or at least professional enough to open up for the big bands. So that's how we got to open up for bands like Sacred Reich and stuff like that. And that's where people started to figure out that we were actually pretty proficient at playing our instruments, and then that's where all the other gigs started to come in. People just needed other guitar players or drummers or bass players, and that's how Paul and Sean ended up on Death. Choi ended up with Pestilence and Atheist, and me with Monstrosity.
Yeah,
because we were shopping our demo. We were trying to play everything. We had already gotten a hype, and we still were getting no interest. Everybody said we were too technical. I mean, the old song and dance, too technical, not repetition. Not enough repetition, and not memorable enough was a lot of the comments that we used to get.
wow.
So when those opportunities came up to play with other people, we're like, listen, let's do it. It's only going to spread the name Cynic further.
Yep.
So we had all gotten together, and we had a conversation about it, and we said, listen, Cynic is priority. So let's take these opportunities. Let's go play with these other bands. But as soon as we get the opportunity to sign or to do Cynic, that is the priority. So, and that was, the case with everybody. And that's basically what happened. That's what happened that's how we ended up playing with all those bands. And that's what finally got the interest of the record companies, that we were, playing with all these professional bands. We had our own band, but we're not signed.
Yeah.
And reluctantly, Roadrunner finally took a chance on us. But,
so before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about your time with Monstrosity.
Okay,
I'd love to hear about that, all that, because we are also big fans of Monstrosity, and Imperial Doom in general is one of the greatest Florida death metal records to ever be created. So,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, dude, I fully back that, and I mean that was the beginnings for a lot of people, So it's just like, let's hear about that, dude.
Yeah, well, it was pretty simple. That again was right around when I don't know who Tony was working with, if it was Pestilence or if it was Atheist first. I don't remember which. And then Paul and Sean started working with Death, and yeah, so Mark Van Erp, bass player Monstrosity, was in Cynic, so we were longtime friends. Of course, Lee, has been. Lee was here in Miami playing with all the bands. He was in the Next Warehouse with us. I forgot which other bands was he playing with. And then when Mark ended up leaving Cynic, him and Lee ended up hooking up and started playing. And this is just, we're all in the same basic warehouse district, just a block away from each other here or there.
Yeah.
But so they had ended up just getting their deal, and they needed another guitarist to do the album. They had John Rubin, and that's when George, that's when Corpse came into the scene,
Mhm.
and so Mark and Lee basically came up to me and said, "Hey, what's going on with you? I know these guys are playing, with Death, and Tony was playing with whoever, And they said, "Are you doing anything?" I said, "No, I'm not doing anything. Like, you want to play, be the other guitarist on our album?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's go for it."
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're all great guys. I mean, um, all great guys in that band, and it was a great experience. So they were up in Fort Lauderdale, which is like 45 minutes away from Miami, and I think that's where they were. It's over in Fort Lauderdale. So I ended up just going up and uh, jamming with them. They had like 5 songs done, and I think there was 3 songs that I ended up contributing, just small rhythm parts or just little parts, and ended up helping with the uh, writing of the songs and the structure of the songs as we were all jamming, getting ready for the album. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, they're all brothers, man. They took me in, and we started playing. And I remember when I first started playing with them, the first day I played with them, my forearm was like practically it was swollen and cramped. I never played so fast in my life. Those guys, they hauled ass on that album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a fun experience. It was definitely a cool experience. They played, like I said, it was excruciating speed. Lee is just a savage on the drums there, and working with Corpse was a lot of fun. He was just starting out in the scene back then.
Yeah, how old
Yeah.
was he?
The time I had seen him, it was at the Cameo, and that same place we were watching a show. I don't know who was playing, and I'm standing out in the pit, and I hear someone singing the song lyrics of the band that's playing, but they're more brutal. And um, I turn over to my left, and there's George. Corpse is standing in the middle of the in the pit, just screaming out the lyrics, belting out the lyrics, and same thing, bashing and head spinning and going crazy over there. I ended up meeting him through the scene, and then ended up getting on the album with him.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a real fun experience working with all those guys. And
Do you remember his neck being big even back then?
I don't know if there's anything in particular you have a question about it, or uh,
His neck, was it as huge as it is now, or
like
did
that.
it grow over years?
What's
Oh, he's
that?
cutting-
I'm sorry.
cutting out.
I was cutting out again. Fuck.
No, no,
Yeah.
not you, not yeah. So
Oh, I
he's
was gonna. I was
asking about
saying,
his neck,
yeah.
like the size
Was
of
Corpse
George's neck.
Grinder's neck just as big back then as well?
Well, it got a little bigger over time, but we were kids. We filled out to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
all pretty thin, but for his body ratio, I mean, he always had just this nasty neck, man. It was
Yeah.
huge, and I think it's one. I'm sure the singing over the years has expanded that the way that he literally just belts out those vocals.
Oh yeah,
But if
dude.
you watch him, just the headbanging, I mean, he's
Mhm.
brutal with the headbanging, and he would sit there back in the day when we were kids, and there'd be 3 or 4 bands that'll play in a show, and he would be banging and headbanging the whole through all the show.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, if you guys ever done some heavy headbanging and head spinning and
It's-
whatever,
Oh,
you
it
guys
definitely
Yeah.
will work you out,
know,
dude.
you know what I mean?
I don't know how
Yeah.
people do it. Yeah, it's like
Yeah. So
it's like he's got a buff neck.
Well, no, he's
Yeah.
a professional. He's got I remember seeing him. I remember the first time I ever saw him in person to person, hanging out backstage area. He was just in the back of Slim's, just doing that by himself. Like he was just
Warming up,
windmilling
yeah.
by himself because it's his muscle. It's like an athlete stretches
Yeah.
their hamstrings.
What if you
Like
found
he's
out?
stretching his neck. You know?
What if you found out
Right.
it wasn't his muscles, dude? It was literally just his vocal cords that have expanded his neck out
Right.
that way.
He morphed into muscles.
Yeah, it was crazy, but yeah, he's always had it.
Complete,
He's always
yeah.
had the neck, and like I said, I think the headbanging is a part of it. We
Mhm.
we figured out pretty quick, especially if your hair's long enough, that head spinning, you just let the hair go, and the hair will pull it around, and you can relax your neck. So that's why we used to head spin so much, was it was a lot easier and a lot less painful after the show than banging your head, and especially when you're busting out a show every night on tour, your neck starts to crank. But yeah, I don't think George has that problem. I think he just bangs right through it.
Yeah.
So we got a question in here from earlier, but it was actually, so when you're first starting to play shows, and I know that Cannibal took you on tour. We could talk about that in a little while, but what was like a lot of these death metal bands' reaction to Cynic when they heard Cynic? What was their kind of, because it's
Are you saying locally when we were playing, or are you saying on tour?
I mean, well, locally in your scene, I mean, in your area, there's a lot of death metal happening. So that's, yeah. So like when a more death metal band saw Cynic, what was like some of the more I mean, what were the reactions? There was obviously, like I know Alex Webster was probably like, fuck yeah. And there was a bunch of people that were like, fuck yeah. And there was people that were into the fusion aspect of things, but like, what was the initial reaction?
It's interesting because as far as the other fellow band members or bands that were around at that time, they got it. They the other, like I said, the other musicians, and we're like Cannibal and all those guys, they are playing totally different music than we were playing, but they totally dug it and got it. I mean, Barrett from Cannibal's been a friend, long time good friend, and he always super dug it, and knew it was kind of our thing or whatever. But most of the musicians actually got it, and then just playing around the scene, I guess everybody was kind of used to it. I guess we didn't realize what we had in the original death metal or 90s death metal scene that it's called now. It was just normal. It was just
Yeah.
other friends and other bands, and it was just normal everyday stuff for us.
Definitely. So a lot of the musician side people that were already musicians were like, Jesus, what the fuck are you guys doing? It's kind of like a big question mark over there. Like, what is, I can't even like, they
always thought we never fit in really with anywhere. We were never quite death metal enough. We were never quite, and in our demo days we were, because we were definitely more thrash, speed metal.
It's more safe for the main goal.
Right. It was much safer, and it was much more accepted, and I think that's how we ended up getting popular. And then when we switched to doing, more the jazz based, focus style playing, we got mixed, definitely got mixed results. Again, our friends and musicians, they thought it was cool, and all supported us and all that, but the scene, some of the people in the scene had a harder time with the transition, I guess. If that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah.
I just had a question about what you were doing besides music at the time. Did you work some jobs? Did you what other stuff's going on in your life?
Back in the Cynic and the Focus days, I was a dog trainer. I was the guy that would get and get attacked by all the dogs. So I started working with dogs when I was about 17. So yeah, right around when I had met those guys, and I was kind of an antisocial kid, and I definitely loved animals, and I had come across this opportunity to get a job at a kennel, and I thought, oh, cool, working with dogs and feeding them and walking them. And I walk into this kennel, and I start talking to the owner, and he starts showing me a video of French ring sport and Compagna and Shih Tzu, all of the sports where the people are in a suit getting attacked by a dog. And I'm going, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I was always an adrenaline junkie, So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, And he had asked me if I had any martial arts background, and I did. I did judo and taekwondo growing up, and so a lot of the throws and a lot of the movements are similar to feeding a dog a bite, to a roundhouse kick or certain kicks. So he'd asked me that, and I goes, okay, well, do you want to try it? And I thought, okay, if I say yes, he's going to say, okay, I'll get the dogs, come back tomorrow, we'll get you suited up. I thought maybe I have a window I can get out of this. And I said, yeah, I'd be interested in trying it. He goes, okay, let's go. And I go, right now? He goes, yeah, let's go. I got a dog out there. We'll send him on you. So he did just that. It suited me up and sent the dog on me. It was a leg biter and told me how to move. It was a huge adrenaline rush. And I ended up working there. It was Kendall Canine. Abel Montejo was the owner of the place. I ended up working there almost 10 years.
Wow.
And I ended up everything from obedience to advanced obedience, agility, drug detection, bomb detection, cadaver detection, to all the protection, to the civil protection, the sport training. I mean, I got super into it.
Wow.
But I made pretty good money for a 17-year-old kid. I was making pretty good money, and that's basically how I paid for everything, as far as instruments, as far as any college, as far as warehouse rent for the band, or any. I never had any parental support monetarily, so I started working I actually started working when I was like 12 years old.
Oh wow.
Jesus.
Just my father was like, "You want money? Go get a job." I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess as long as you sign a work release," it's like, I'll sign it. So I started working very young, but yeah. So actually, through the Cynic days, I mean, I'd go play a show, and show would end at 4 in the morning. By the time we end up getting out and get back to the warehouse, or
By 10 o'clock, you're getting eaten by a dog or something.
well, by 7:30 the next morning, I would actually go from the show to the kennel. And then we had a morning a sport class, ring sport class, and Saturday mornings at 7:30, and I would go get attacked, all day. And so I mean, I did all different types of training, but the bite work was a lot of fun. And we worked for 2 police stations, so a couple times a week we had a round of police dogs that would come out, and we would keep them up for their police trials and all that. So
anytime the suit break and you actually got like hurt?
Yeah. We had a dog named Clip, and the reason he was named Clip is he would come in for an attack, and he would leave the ground about 6 feet before he could reach you, and he would catch you in the shoulder. Whether it was if you're fleeing, he'd catch you in the back shoulder. If you're facing, he'd catch you in the front shoulder. And if you didn't know how to take him, he'd airplane you, and bring you to the ground. And he was young. He was maybe a year and a half, old or whatever. He was going through our whole training program. And one day we were out training. We had a guy visiting from France, actually a French trainer that was visiting, Philippe Clement, if I remember correctly. And long story short, Clip was all the way on the other side of the field, and he was tied with a leash, a leather leash. And we had a puppy on the other side of the field. So you're talking about a 70-meter field that you could, send a dog across. Mm-hmm. So we had a puppy tied on the other side of the field near where I was sitting, and we were actually taking a break. So the owner and Felipe, the French trainer, they ended up going inside. They were going to grab some water and some stuff to drink to bring out. And I was taking a break, so I had taken off the suit jacket, and I just had the pants on. So I'm sitting there, and little Charlie, the puppy over to my right, is wanting some attention. So one of the things that you would use is a bamboo baton, and you would slice the bamboo baton, and it would rattle when you shook it, and then when you hit the dogs, it would bend and it would give, so it wouldn't hurt them, but they would see the movement and they would not fear the movement of getting hit. And so it was part of the training. So I'm sitting there. Charlie was just kind of wagging and wanting some attention. So I grabbed one of the batons and I shake it over and I walk over and I feed him a leg bite. So he's tied on a post. And so imagine I'm sitting there and he's biting my thigh. And I'm just sitting there with the stick, rattling the stick and rubbing on him, telling him, good boy, and having a good time with the puppy. Well, Clip is all the way on the other side of the field, and we didn't realize, he knew if you can get a leather lead, if they can get it in their back incisor or incisor teeth, however you say it, they can cut through it like a pair of scissors. He heard the stick and saw me playing and saw me, getting bit, and he chewed through the leash, and he bolts across 70 meters at me full speed.
Oh my
So-
god.
So I'm sitting there. I don't see him coming. I'm working with the
puppy,
the puppy, and he comes bolting. Well, apparently, as he comes flying up the field, the owner and the trainer come walking out, and they just see Cliff like buzzing, across the field, obviously going for a bite. And so, of course, he comes right up. He flies. He catches me right in my left shoulder, and time slows down. Just stops for a second. All of a sudden, boom! I'm leaning over and I look and I'm seeing a dog head, and I'm also going, okay, I got the jacket on right now. So there's like everything slows down when that happens, and the impact from the hit shocked the puppy. The puppy backed off.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I look and I realize, okay, I got a dog on me. So when the dogs they bite, they shake like a shark.
Yeah.
So if they go for a high bite, they will hang usually until their feet touch the ground, and as soon as their feet touch the ground, that's where they start their shake and they start to really tear and do some damage. So he's on my shoulder. I see him, and I just raise up as high as I can on my tippy toes, and I'm tiptoeing backwards, trying to keep his feet from touching the ground. And right as his feet go to touch the ground, the owner and other trainer, run up, yelled his name. He didn't see them coming, and shocked him out, and he let go.
Wow.
Jesus.
So, and another funny thing is that his right canine was broken. Okay, so he came in when he caught me. His right canine only scratched me. His left canine dug a hole in my shoulder, but just scratched it. And it was his two bottom canines that punctured me real good in the underarm. So I was lucky that one canine was missing, and I was lucky that I basically could keep him off the ground until the guys got there and got him off of me.
Yeah,
So-
dude.
He gets him off of me, and I'm looking, and I see the puncture holes, and I'm like, geez. So the owner walks into the house, walks out with a bottle of alcohol and Q-tips. And he goes, it's a dog bite. He goes, you probably got hair in there or something in the puncture wounds. Do you want to do it or you want me to do it? And I remember I was like, just give it to me. And I, had to dig it, into the puncture wounds and at least clean it out until we could get to the hospital and have him
Stitched
I
up.
think I got a couple stitches, or whatever.
Mhm.
But
So, how old were you when this happened?
17.
Wow.
So this is
right at the
pre-
beginning.
This is pre-focused. All that
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So then the other interesting part of that story was, I go to the doctors. We get cleaned out, and stitched or whatever I needed to get done, and we come back to the kennel, and I get ready to go home, and understand, Cliff was a young dog doing exactly what he was trained to do that we did for fun. When you
Right.
train the dog from a puppy, it's play. You're rubbing them, good boy, bite, rubbing them, they're biting, and it's a play thing. So he didn't know he had done anything. He didn't do anything wrong. He was doing just what he did or whatever. So it was me that had to overcome the fear of getting attacked again. So I remember I came back to the kennel, and I'm like, okay, I'm stitched up, I'm good, I'm gonna go home and whatever. And Abel goes, well, don't forget your dog. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, Cliff is your dog now. And he gave me Cliff that night, and I took Cliff home. Cliff lived with me for like 6 months until we sold him to the Bahamian police department. Ended up buying him, and he ended up having a good life with a good police officer
dude.
over there. But yeah, to overcome the fear, I actually took Cliff home. He slept with me in bed, and then I ended up being the handler for him, and ended up I was the one that would handle him and demo him, and of course I still took fights from him to overcome, because you got to overcome your fear of those things.
Right.
If you want to.
So did they give you Clip because of that specifically?
Yeah, because he bit me, and they didn't give me They gave him to me to live with me.
Yeah, that, I
until,
didn't mean when I said
until-
give you. I didn't mean
until,
like
yeah,
you're the
yeah.
owner
They,
now. Yeah,
specifically because, yeah, specifically to help me overcome any anxiety or any fear from getting bit again or anything like that, which I
Wow,
really
dude.
didn't have. And I didn't have any bad feelings towards Clip. I loved the dog, and we were
Mhm.
good buddies, and
Yeah.
we were training partners to begin with. So I didn't have any fear of taking him home with me or whatever, but it was something that the owner was like, it'd be best, take him home. He's going to be your dog. And,
Mhm.
Yeah,
when
what was the breed? What was the breed, Jason? What was the breed?
Belgian Malinois.
Okay. So yeah.
The Belgian shepherds that all the
Oh,
police
sorry.
and military are using now. We were actually ahead of the game. We were bringing Belgians in from France and from Belgium. Like I said, back when I actually went to France with Abel. We brought 17 pit bulls to France, and we brought back 15 Belgian shepherds from France, and that's back when I was 17 years
Wow.
old as well.
Wow.
So when I got bit was maybe 18,
Okay.
18, but I mean, close enough.
I was just thinking about, before we move on from that, I was just thinking like that if that went bad, like there's a timeline where Jason Gobel got his arm fucked up and he couldn't play guitar again. You
Well,
know?
bro, I mean, you the suit that you wear to be attacked, it's a jacket, so your neck and your head is exposed. Okay, and it's usually a little lower jacket, and
Mhm.
your hands and your feet are exposed. And I've had them get me here. I've had them get me underneath, the shirt where they had their bottom canine was under the jacket next to my belly. I got lucky because one time I actually got my hand in one of the dog's mouths when he was coming in for a bite, and thank God this was a dog that I trained with every
Mhm.
day. He was one of our demo dogs, Toklu, Belgian Shepherd as well. And he had felt it, and he just grazed me. He didn't fully chomp because I probably would have lost one of my hands. But yeah, I got really lucky, man, because I was out there. I was playing guitar at night and getting attacked by dogs. I mean, I had 8-hour job every day I was doing, and um, yeah, I was pretty fortunate, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely exciting and
Yeah.
exciting job.
So you
to
said
do.
you did it for 10 years, so you were obviously still involved in that was your career. Check out my headphones right now, guys. I fucking still have not replaced these things. They're just fucking they still work. I can still hear.
I would say at least 8 years I was training. So what would happen is I would whenever I was in town, I would trade. If we like when Focus came around and when the tour came around, I left on tour and I came back and I ended up going back and training for a while again after that. So it was just like it was a job that was always there. If I was
Yeah.
in town, I could do
That's
it and I
huge
could
for a
make-
musician. They'll take you back. It's like you can go on
Yeah.
tour and they'll bring you back. That's huge for a musician. Yeah, especially like
Yeah.
touring and stuff. Yeah, that's awesome.
So
Mine was called Circuit City. But anyways,
there
long
you go.
story.
little safer, but yeah.
Yeah. No,
I was
that's
gonna
cool.
say
Yeah,
so. The
That's how I
intense,
feel.
yeah, the intense
ahead.
like the mosh pits or crowds, whatever. You're like probably looking at the crowd like, I need to train. I don't know how to make this joke exactly. Yeah, like you're like I'm prepared for this. Like I know how to handle this kind
exactly.
of situation.
Nobody's biting me right now.
Yeah.
I'm chill.
Yeah.
It's funny because pretty much us Cynic boys, especially when we're young, we're pretty boys compared to all the other guys out there in the other bands that were tattooed and big burly guys. A lot of but yeah, it's funny because I was taking a lot more pain and doing a lot more brutal stuff than most people were. We get people that come out and they these big tough macho guys that would come out and go, "Oh, I could beat your dog's ass" or whatever, this and that. And we'd say, "Okay, you want to put on the suit?" And
Yeah.
watch grown men scream like a baby. Okay, I mean like a baby, because the whole key with the suit was to get the dog once he bit to try and slide it off. And with movement, when they recorrect the bite, you're constantly trying to slide them. But if they get you, I mean, I've had muscle the size of an egg crushed, and it looks like a half an egg sticking out of your arm or sticking out of your leg from when they actually get you. I had
Jesus.
teeth that got through the suit, so I had puncture holes in my legs, because when you get into the high level training, the thinner the suit, the better you can move. So when you get into the competition sports training, the guy getting bit, his job is to take points away from the dog and try and make the dog fail. So you sacrifice the thickness of your suit for mobility, and you get cut, you get cut up, you get bruised up, and you get beat up, and but you sacrifice that for the ability to move fast and move like like you're free without a suit.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was funny. I was taking a lot more pain, and I mean, I was an extreme kid. I was into motocross and martial arts and speed death metal and getting attacked by
Yeah,
dogs.
dude.
I mean, I had an adrenaline thing when I was a kid,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's rad, dude. So, and you're doing all the extreme sports that like the motocross stuff during Cynic and stuff too?
The motocross I did when I was younger.
Okay.
Probably,
Yeah.
I only raced. I raced pro class from like maybe 12 to 14, 15 max.
Whoa.
But we actually lived on the outskirts of Miami, in the East Everglades is what they used to call it. So I was a mile down a dirt road, so a bicycle or whatever didn't work. So from about 10 years old on, I was on dirt bikes or ATCs, or
Mhm.
whether I was racing, motocross or not. We lived on bikes out there.
Mhm.
Nice.
But yeah, that was just a little bit before Cynic.
Mhm.
Yeah, that actually really fleshes out the story more than I expected to get from asking that question.
And funny,
Totally,
Reinert came out and took a bite. I had a couple friends, Reinert, a good friend of ours, Jose Rodriguez, Lisa Armstrong, came out and took a bite. But yeah, whenever
I love your terminology, dude. They came and took a bite. Or
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah,
I heard
yeah.
you say, I gave him a leg bite. I gave the puppy a leg bite.
I guess it's so common. It was so common. I did it for so many years. But yeah, just let someone take a bite is what we would call it. And I remember Reinert, I told him, said, okay, the dog's going to come in. He's going to bite you right above the knee. When he does, you want to kind of move and see if you can keep your leg out of his out of his mouth. And whatever you do, don't fall. Because if you fall, they can just crunch down on you, and it's going to suck. You're not going to die or anything, but it's going to suck. And so Reinert ended up taking a bite, and the dog bit him, and he started spinning in a circle to keep the dog off him. Almost was like airplaning the dog around to keep him from being able to come in for another bite. But yeah, he was actually the only member that actually came out. But back in the day, if you thought it was cool and was interested, I was like, come on out, man. We'll send a few dogs on you and have some fun.
It sounds interesting, dude. It really
It's
does.
fun. It's an adrenaline rush. It's something that you gain a lot of respect for what a dog can really do. People don't realize.
That's
And,
the closest a human gets to like choosing to be attacked by a predator, dude. Like
Yeah.
you could go out into the woods and just wait for a bear, or you could go hang out with Jason Gobel and he'll sick a predator on you.
Back in the day, yeah, we used to love it, and
That's sick.
and it was a safe way to get it. But you gain a lot of respect if a trained dog, especially, that's why we train them for the leg. If they get you in the leg, they're going to get a major artery. You're not going to run far. You're not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? And people don't realize what they can do. And then you want to come out and experience it. It was always fun to see people and just see their eyes light up, because you can't explain it to someone. You got to be there with the dog, tearing at your leg or tearing at your arm to really enjoy it.
So how fast can a dog just immobilize somebody, like with no padding, obviously in a crime or something that's sicked on or in the military, whatever they use them for. Like, I mean,
You know,
they can just bite your
yeah,
leg.
they can get you. I mean, so if they get your arm, that's why people
Yeah.
stop training for the arm. You know, they get your arm, you can punch, or you can
Mhm.
target them. You can see here and go, here's the arm. No, it's not. You can make them miss. You know, so that's when they started targeting full body. You know, and now the legs they can't run. The torso is a good spot because it's hard to miss. They can come in and aim for the shot, but there's not much meat there to grab unless they go for the
Mhm.
gut. You know, so the leg ended up being the more popular,
Like, yeah.
Yeah,
just
major
because
artery and
it
stuff.
can take you out. But now when you go for a dog that's going for a kill, and I know we're way off music
No,
here,
I
but
love this.
No,
I
that's
love
fine.
this.
I love this so
This
much.
is what the
right now.
podcast is
Yeah,
all about.
let's go there for sure.
if
yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
a dog that's actually going for a kill, so we would train these dogs, and then they would join the police force, and then they would get a real bite. And as soon as they got that real bite, you saw a difference in the dog, and you saw
Oh,
a
yeah.
difference in the training, and you saw a difference in their mentality and their attitude. And it's like they understand. They finally put all this work that they've done as a kid in training together, and they realize what they're doing. So we would get into civil training. So civil training is where you take the suit off, you muzzle the dog, and you let this
Okay.
dog attack you.
Oh wow.
And you can see where they're going to target. You can see what they're going to do. You can run. You can, act like the villain, do all the stuff like that. So I had a situation where we had a dog that chased a civilian into a back area, one of our police dogs, and it was almost like a back utility room that he got in. He got in the dark. So she had sent the dog in, and the dog didn't bite. The dog was confused, or for whatever reason didn't feel right and didn't bite. So in training, it's a normal thing. That's why you train the dogs in all different environments. So she brings the dog back. This dog was a Belgian Shepherd again. I mean, just stout muscle. I mean, this was a specimen of a dog. And the person that was in that utility room was a 16-year-old kid. So I was so grateful that this dog did not attack this kid. But so we set up the same scenario. We got a utility room. It was dark, whatever. Who you got in there? Me, lucky guy in the room. They send the dog in to attack, and we did the muzzle scenario with this. And when they come in and they attack you and they're muzzled, they're hitting you because they're coming in to bite, and it's like someone punching you. It's like
Right.
they'll catch you in the face, or they'll catch you. So this dog comes in and it comes right in, shoots for my neck, hits me in the stomach, and then goes for my groin. Okay, so that is a mature adult trained male dog that is actually going for a kill, because they know if in the wild they go for the neck, the gut, or the groin. So
Chimpanzee.
depends on the scenario, depends on the dog or whatever. But if the right dog gets you and really wants to do some damage, and you don't know how to defend yourself, they can kill a man very easy. I mean, it was common to keep a gun on the field. You kept a gun on the field, and I remember there was when we were training, there was some competition going on. I think in Belgium or something like that, a Campagna competition, and one of the dogs ended up attacking someone, and they had to shoot. They had to shoot the dog, and the guy died because the dog bit him in the gut.
Jesus.
He's bit him in the gut.
Oh my god, they have a gun and the dog still kind of got a victory.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah. They didn't get the gun out in time. They got the gun out to get him off the guy, but he didn't end up surviving.
animals in general, like I've had, like obviously just like I have a cat, but like if there's been times where I'm just like feeding him a treat and he bites me all the time, like fucking around. But I fed him a treat before and he thought it was the treat and he hit my finger, threw my finger immediately, like didn't even like bad. And I had a parrot before. Parrots were like if they're just nibbling you, like parrots could crush those Brazilian walnuts. Like it's like 1,300 pounds to crush one of those, like of pressure, just easy, just like if they're like just nibbling you and it like kind of hurts a little bit, like they love you, because they could fucking go directly through you easily.
Take a chunk.
Chimpanzees will just like rip off
It's
your
funny
genitals.
that you mentioned that. I used to socialize parrots as well.
Oh, nice.
I got into a lot of animal things, but through the dogs, I ended up working with. We had people from the zoo, so I ended up good friends with a couple people there, like the elephant keeper, the gorilla keeper. So I'd get to go. I would get to go in the back and hang out with some of these crazy animals and feed them. And then there was a local aviary, and I was my girlfriend had a parrot at the time, and we had gone by to get something for a parrot, and they had a bunch of baby. Um, a couple African grays and a couple cockatoos that were there. And I just walked up and I started to pick them up, and they was petting them and playing with them. And the owner came up to me and she goes, "You work with birds?" I go, "No, actually I work with dogs or whatever." And she said, "Wow, you're really natural. And if you want to pick up some extra work," I was always hungry, to make money, you want to pick up some extra work, you can help socializing some of the parrots.
Oh, cool.
So I know what you're talking about on the biting, bro. They're savages. The amount of pressure that they have. So you take them and you put them in a bathtub, and you get sticks, and you go rub under their belly, and you get them to step on the stick, step on the next stick, step on the stick, slide an arm in there, and you eventually start to socialize them.
Definitely.
But I used to do that, and I got bit by a couple of those guys too, man. I
have scars all over myself from my parrot back in the day. Yeah.
Damn.
When they decide to actually cut through, it's just like, oh, your skin, that's easy to get through. Like I can easily get through this. Yeah.
And they're moody because sometimes they give you a little kiss all gentle, and sometimes they bite you, So
yeah. I know that's one thing about parrots, not to get down in parrots' bills, but like one thing, I mean, they usually, like, I watched a documentary on them. A lot of people are like, I want a parrot, people like all the kind of like more, I don't know, people that just like think they can just have whatever they want. They're like, oh, I would like a parrot. And then they 2 months later, they're like, oh, it's too loud. I would like to not have a parrot anymore. And there's these sanctuaries that take all these parrots in because people don't want, like, they think they can handle it, but they can't, because those things.
It's horrible. No,
yeah, I know, it sucks. It sucks. It's like it's like an object to them. And like, these things are like, they love, like, usually they only love like one person. Like, you can't just like, yeah, exactly. So you can't just like, it's not a cat, it's not a dog that you just pass around. You're like, oh, can you have my dog, have my cat? Like, these things will rip their feathers out if they're after their first person that they're like all about is gone. They're really
the thing that people don't realize is even I had a couple different parrots, but a Nande conure, just a small, or a sun conure, they live 30 years. You get into like the African grays are up in, I think, like 40 to 60, and then when you get into the big parrots, you're talking 100+ years that they live.
No shit, dude. I didn't know it was 100+ years.
Yeah,
people don't realize that 80, 100 years, and so they usually end up getting passed to a family member that doesn't want them, or it's so. I mean, if you own a parrot, it's a life commitment, and it's a it's really sad that those sanctuaries have to exist, because that's what happens, and they bond to one person, and they outlive them sometimes, depending on when they get the bird. And
that just sounds like those types of animals shouldn't be allowed to be pets.
There should be some sort of regulation or something.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think anyone should just own it, or they really should be educated on what they're getting into.
Right.
I had a yellow naped Amazon. It's the second smartest behind the African gray is the smartest, and we had like the second smartest one, and it was because of a friend that was having health issues and stuff, and we took him on, and he luckily bonded with us, but man, he was moody, man. I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah, they are moody as can be. Yeah. 1 minute they love you, 1 minute they hate you. They're interesting animals.
Definitely. All right, to pull this back from the parrot dog paradox. I love it though. I love that's
how we got started. Is what I used to do when I was in Cynic. But yeah, that was
totally
my job. Yeah.
But it sounds like it's just as much of a passion for you as it was Cynic. So that's what we want to hear, dude.
I did enjoy it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. It was tough. It's a 24/7, 365 day a year business to own. Like for Christmas, I would actually go over and help clean the kennels and help feed the dogs as my gift to the owner, because it's they gotta get fed every day. Doesn't matter holiday, doesn't matter what's going on. So it's an interesting business. it's a business for a young man, but it's a lot of fun. It's an exciting. You don't wake up in the morning and think, geez, I got to go sit in the office, or I got to go, push a
Yeah.
pen or something like that. You get out there and you have fun. So
And you
I
connect
was
with
happy.
the different species, and even though you guys don't speak the same language, you end up bonding and making friends
Absolutely.
and all that. We hear about Chip 30 years later, I love that,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. That's yeah. It was a fun part of my life for sure. One of the funner jobs that I had growing up. The other thing I did when I was with Cynic was I was doing locksmithing. I was an apprentice as a locksmith. That's
Wow.
another random bit of information, but we
Locksmithing
were
is actually something pretty interesting to me, and I would love to be able to pick locks.
yeah, and it's changed a lot, but the actual picking is pretty similar. Like you get into some of the high end Madecos and some of the other locks that have come out. The old school picking is a lot harder. But yeah, I used to pick locks. I used to open cars. I used to break into houses when people locked themselves out. So what happened was we were training a dog, a German Shepherd, for a locksmith, so he could take it around with him when he was doing night calls and stuff like that. So one of the things that we had next to our kennel was we had an avocado grove. Was a 5 acres of avocado was next
Wow.
to our training field. So we knew the owner, and we said, "Hey, do you mind if at night if we throw a couple dogs over the fence and we go train in the avocado grove? Because you got trees, it's dark, it's different terrain, and so we'd go out and we'd train at night over there sometimes." So we go to train this guy's dog, and we decide to go over to this avocado thing, and we pull up to the fence, and I start throwing stuff over the fence, and I'm getting ready to grab we brought a couple dogs, grab one of the dogs and throw him over, and he looks at me and goes, "What are you guys doing?" I go, "The fence is locked, man. We're trying to get in so we can go train." And he looks at me, he looks back at the van. You see, it was A1 Lock and Key was the name of the company. Julio was the guy,
Hmm.
and because I'm a locksmith. So he gets out the picks, and he picks the lock right there, opens the gate, and we go and we train. And I was amazed. I was like, "Holy shit, that is so cool. How do you
Right.
open the lock?" And he explained to me, the cylinder and the pins and the springs, and when you rake it or whatever. So he showed me, he gave me the lock, and I actually raked it, boom, and I opened it up. And he goes, "Wow, you're pretty natural. Do it again." And I did it again. He offered me a job. So I ended up going and working at him with nights. I would take call, and I would run around town and break in, open cars that were people lock their keys in there, or
Yeah.
if people get locked out of their house, or stuff like that. So I did locksmithing at night also when I was training, and that was actually more dangerous than the dog training back in the day in Miami, because we had some tough parts of town, and that's when all the gang banging and the gun shooting and all that stuff was going on.
Right.
And to give you an example, I would get a call in the middle of the night on the radio, and it would say, "JJ, we got a call. You got a car to open up. Bring your gun. Bring your dog," is what he used to tell me. And that's when I knew I was going to a bad part of town, and had to open up a
Jesus.
car.
Yeah.
So I end up going on one of these calls, and it was a nice lady that was locked out of her car. So I pull up behind. I've got my dog in the car, and I leave the window cracked, and I walk up. She says, "This is a car, whatever." And okay, so I grab the rod, I grab the Slim Jim, and I start to go to open the car. So as I walk up and I start to start working on the window, I feel her lean against me, and she put her back to my back. Um, and I'm kind of like, "What the heck's going on?" I said, "Ma'am, is everything okay?" She goes, "Yeah, everything's okay." She goes, "I'm sorry." She goes, "This isn't your neighborhood. You're white. They'll drive by and shoot you if they see you. So I'm gonna stand here and protect you."
Jesus.
I ended up opening her car and went about it, but that was kind of the common thing too. It was a real tough part of town, and um, very interesting job to do, working nights in Miami back in the 80s and 90s, or in the
Yeah.
90s. But Yeah,
Yeah, I've
so,
definitely seen the cocaine cowboys and stuff like they were showing about Miami and stuff like back and just how like it was ran by I don't want to say cartels, but like just gangs that had like all the money.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
a tough town. I remember growing up in Miami. Like when you'd walk down the street, you really didn't look people in the eye too much. You look them in the eye, you're looking for trouble, and they were real happy to give it to you. And everybody's packing, and yeah, everybody had cocaine back in those days, and yeah, it was a tough city. It's a lot better now, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Damn.
definitely.
Jason's the most interesting man in the world, dude.
I know. Gee.
So
We got to
man,
make a movie about this, dude.
So
that's
I
funny.
mean, we're gonna go back into it was pre-pod we were talking about this, but I'm gonna do it for the people just because I want to say this out loud. I always talk about people always ask me my favorite solo, and it's always how could I. That's Jason solo and how could I. I'm always like I've probably said that 20 times in this podcast. It's like how could I, and then it's comfortably numb, and then it's you know what I mean. It's like that's like
Awesome.
You
the
were saying that
rankings.
when we were in our early 20s too, dude. Like
Yeah, exactly.
we would be at the Thunderdome and you'd be like, "How could I solo, dude?"
Yeah, just like the way it like I mean just the I mean you said and also too we were talking you talk more about it in a second but like because you already told me all the thing some of the things I want to say but as far as just how it like brought a fresh like energy to the song and kind of like it's kind of like a build up and it's like a total like a I just think of like a I always think of whenever I hear an epic solo I think of like an eagle just flying around just like you know like it's got that in the beginning of the solo it's kind of like a it just has this kind of eagle someone riding on a dragon kind of fucking and but then it like takes you through like ups and downs and there's like a build up and then it comes a little down and then builds up.
that, that's how I've actually always viewed soloing. So a song, in essence, a song takes you on an adventure or tells
Mm-hmm.
you a story. And I've always felt that the solo should do the same. The solo should take you somewhere. It should lead you on its own journey and have a path and have either a build or a climax or a descent or something. Um, it's just got to go somewhere. That's why I've never ever considered myself in any way a shredder or anything like that. Like Paul was always a faster player, and um, I always saw myself more as a melodic player. But when I approach a solo, I always want it to take you somewhere. So I will usually start it softer and will build or will peak and then drop. And with how could I actually had to me a classical feel to it. That
Mm-hmm.
ending rhythm, the ending rhythm that Paul's playing that I'm soloing over, and so I look at it counterpunctually a little bit. But yeah, with all the solos, they should build and either climax or build and but it has to go somewhere. It has to tell a story. And the interesting thing about How Could I is that was probably the easiest solo I ever wrote out of all
Oh,
the
shut
solos.
up. I don't want to hear that.
No, 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 and nothing to
It's just
do
flat out, you know?
nothing to do with technical. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really, bro. Come on. Okay, I'm not sure which guys here play guitar or anything like that or not, but
I'm the best guitar player on the show.
On opposite day.
perfect. But still, it's not a technically hard solo to play. I think, I mean, go play. I don't know, pick anybody, Vi Holdsworth, whatever. Those guys are all shredders. But
Like Kurt Cobain, yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I don't think it's that technically hard, but it tells a story, and it actually it really fits in the music. So I always want to see a solo that's going to build and it's going to take you somewhere. It's going to tell you its own story, and I don't like solos that play over the top. Anyone can shred over the top. You have to grab what you're playing over. You have to use that foundation. It's like the paper for your novel. You got to use that foundation to your benefit and to really work with that and build around it. Um, and have it literally go somewhere, not just shredding and everything over the top. So that's why you'll always see with a lot of my solos that they start pretty mellow. There may be some little fast flurries, but it's more about taking you somewhere and telling a story. And that's the reason that I say How Could I was probably one of the easiest solos that I ever had to write. Was I don't know, it's just something that clicked with me with the rhythm, something that was in the air that night, you know
It
what I
flew
mean?
out of you.
And
You said it flew out of you, right? It was something that just kind of flew out of you.
it flew out of me in the sense that it was as soon as I had the first note, that first note told me where the next note was to go, and that next note told me the next note to go. It's almost like it wrote itself.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Eddie Van Halen said something, and I believe it. You know, all the creativity, everything is floating here in the air. It's
Mhm.
all around us. The creativity is always there.
Right.
It's
Right.
if you can lock into it, and if you can channel from it. And um, and I do remember when I was writing that solo, just there was something there. There was something in the energy. There was something in the air, and I was like, yeah, this is flowing. You know, this is it's. I'm not even having to really struggle. I mean, most solos I struggle with. I'm
Mhm.
really more of a rhythm and a songwriter than I am a soloist. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that sense, How Could I? Yeah, was actually one of the easiest solos that I wrote. Um, and I had no idea. I had no idea. I mean, Paul's a great player, you know, and got some great solos. But it seems like How Could I? It seems to be one of the most popular solos on that album.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was blown away that it was me that did it. I would have figured Paul would have done something because he was, you know, much more of a shredder than I was. But again, I think it's the storyline and the. I think what
Well,
makes that solo is so cool is where it takes you in the storyline. Again, I don't think it's that technically hard to play in comparison to what people are playing these days. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
and same thing, like you said. What was the other favorite solo you said? Pink Floyd.
comfortably
Comfortably
numb.
numb.
There you go, man. I mean,
Yeah.
right there, it's
Feel.
feel. It's
Yeah.
taking you somewhere. It's taking you on a
Mhm.
journey, and so that's how I think a solo should be.
And I love
Should be.
the how like Paul comes in too. I mean, you guys. I mean, you start with your solo, then Paul comes in with his like Roland kind of like like the MIDI kind of feel. Is that you or him? I thought that was Paul, right?
On How Can I?
Yeah, yeah.
That,
After like it kind of like comes.
that's me on the synth. Yeah,
Oh
that's
shit!
that's me on the synth.
Right.
So what that was I had written the solo, and then
Yeah.
they wanted to do a repeat. You know, kind of a pattern fade out like we did, and it same thing that had a classical feel to me. So
Mhm.
I thought, you know, kind of counterpunctually. I wouldn't say it's actual counterpunctual, but that was kind of the go, and something that repeated but changed every time just a little bit, but still kept the same feel. Um, but yeah, that was me on the
Damn.
guitar on that part.
So
Yeah.
sick.
God, that's literally you've
Sick, dude.
probably brought the most like those excited tears where you get like it's not like you're not like
Yeah.
oh like
You're
it's not
so
like a sad movie
joyous
but
that
you're
you
like
cry.
yeah
There's so much
your
joy
adrenaline and
in that
everything's
moment.
so
Yeah.
high that you're just like you're like why is my eyes all wet like like that I mean comfortably numb that and those have brought like the most like um not artificial intelligence. Jesus Christ, I've been drinking a lot tonight. Like most
You almost had it, dude.
organic,
Yeah.
organic feel. I'm like, I don't know what to do right now, and then like my eyes just get all wet, and I'm like, what? Why is this happening? I don't know.
Shoals
Like,
like Chat GPT, write me a guitar solo.
It's amazing because there was a friend that I have on social media, and he had actually sent me a video of him with tears coming out from
Mhm.
one of my solos on Portal. I forgot which on the Portal tapes, um, but he had said it had moved him so much, and that
Yeah.
was to me was like the biggest compliment that anyone could ever give you. If you could bring someone to that emotion,
Yeah.
again back to that solo telling a story or taking you somewhere, taking you on a journey or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, that's like the biggest compliment you could get, and that's when you go, okay, that's probably a pretty good solo, you know.
I mean,
Right.
for
At
me
least
too. I mean,
I
my
personally.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like my girlfriend's she's a vocalist. She sings. She's all about lyrics. Like lyrics are the most important thing for her. And for me, like I make up a feeling or an idea or something through the music will is my lyrics, you know. So I'm
I don't
like,
do lyrics.
yeah.
I
I mean, sometimes a lyric like in a pop song, like a Depeche Mode song, I'm like, yeah, I feel what you're saying. But like when I'm like dealing with like I'm a big prog guy too, so I'm into prog and stuff. But like sometimes when I see what they're doing and how it changes the moodiness of like an Opeth song, where it's like down and up and down and up, and it's like bringing you down, making you like feel a certain way with a riff, and then kind of like bringing you back up and then taking you back down. And it's like I don't even know what you're saying, but like the music is guiding me. It's like I'll read the lyrics
Mhm.
later, you know. Like,
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't do lyrics in the sense that, I mean, of course, if you heard a song, you know, 100 times or whatever, you're going to learn the lyrics regardless. But
mhm.
I never really heard words. I always heard lyrics as another melody.
Yeah,
So I
instrument.
hardly ever know any lyrics to the song. You know, I couldn't tell you half the lyrics on Focus or any of the stuff on there. Never made a difference to me. It was more how it worked linearly along with the rest of the music, and I heard it as a line. And to this
Yeah.
day, I still never seem to retain lyrics in music. I still hear it as another instrument.
I also make up
And
my own lyrics because like I don't know, I'm so like dyslexic with lyrics because I'm not
I would
like paying
love
attention to
to
it too much.
watch transcribed Opeth songs by
Oh
Joel.
man. Oh no, I make up my own lyrics behind it because I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but the way this makes me feel, I feel like you're saying this. Like
there you
it's
go.
like I'm not like focused on it. I know, but it's a hyper focus for a lot of like
Grilled
people
cheese
nowadays.
and man soup.
Yeah.
Well, it's
It's like
interesting how important lyrics are to people, you know,
yeah.
and I understand and respect that, and especially for your common listener that's maybe not a musician, that's how they tie into it. But yeah, I've never been able to follow lyrics, or I could care less what they're singing about as long as the music was right for me.
What if
And I don't mean
what if it's your favorite music ever? Like it's the best thing ever, but they're like, fucking kill all
Fuck,
those
fuck
dogs that they
dogs,
that
dude.
like
I
and then
mean,
you're
to be honest, I didn't care. Actually, it's funny because I've listened to a lot of things that were wrong. I mean, what was that old Agnostic Front album that just had pretty much every racial topic and slur you could ever think out about? But it was
yeah.
a freaking amazing album, you know. To NWA, Niggas for Life, that was one of my favorite albums for the longest time.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, I guess as long as they're not really killing the dogs, I guess if you want to say it, I'll let you have your freedom of speech. You know.
That's awesome,
That's
dude.
awesome. No,
Totally.
that's
All right,
great.
so
Love that.
I want to hear about during the Focus touring
Yes.
times, how that felt for you. Because had you guys done anything like long scale before that
We
touring
used
that
to do
record?
we used to do self-financed East Coast tours.
Mm-hmm.
We would get a van and a trailer, and we would set up shows all the way along the East Coast up to New York, Chicago, Milwaukee, and we would just do those on our own. You basically call up every band you know and say, "Hey, can you set up a gig?" And you know, we would make our own runs, and we did that. Played all the way up, and then went to like the New York Music Seminar and tried to give out our demos in Manhattan at anybody that would take a demo, and that was a waste of time. But you know, we were young and trying. We did the same thing, played all the way up and back one time, and we ended up played all the way up, and then at the top was the Milwaukee Metal Fest. We played the Metal
Mhm.
Fest, and then we came, played back down, and we did that with we did the Cynical Creation tour. That was one of them. It was Malevolent Creation and Cynic, and we
Mm.
traveled all the way up and played all the way up and through Buffalo, where they're from, and ended up staying at Phil's house for a while. That was
Mhm.
fun. But so yeah, that was the only real, I guess, touring experience before we actually left on tour with Cynic. With
How was
Focus.
I know that a lot of a lot of the stories. Like my brother was at the Berkeley show in '94 with uh, Cannibal, Cynic, and
Oh,
stuff like
really?
that.
That was a good show.
Yeah, he was on acid, but but also too
Probably
he
better.
yeah. And there was an earthquake that night too. By the way, there was an earthquake there, and he was like freaking out, and that was like one of the weirdest nights for him.
So let me tell you a story about that.
Yeah,
Here-
We were we were there at that gig, and after the gig, we ended up at a hotel room.
yeah.
I don't know if it was for us or whatever. And Steve DiGiorgio from Sadis or Testament or
Shout out.
however many, good old Steve-O.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Steve was hanging out in the hotel with us. We were all, eating shit after the show. And all of a sudden, I feel something. I feel a rumble. And I was like, yo, is that an earthquake? And Steve goes, dude, that was some kid running down the hallway. He goes, trust me, if that was a fucking earthquake, he goes, my ass would be jumping out of the window because we're on the second floor. He says that, I swear to you, no more than 10, 15 seconds later, another rumble. I look at him, dude, he's got his foot. He's got his foot on the window, about to open the window and jump out. And that was that night. I remember that earthquake.
Yeah, so you felt
shit.
the what is it, the precursor type thing that happens.
Yeah. Felt a little
Yeah,
rumble.
that's California, dude.
Yeah.
It really
Jesus.
is. I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
plenty
I'm
of
sorry?
earthquakes as a child, dude. And that's just what you naturally get used to. Like Steve's like, that wasn't an earthquake because we're so used to like little weird shit that happens. Like, did our
Right.
house just shake for a little second? Oh no, it's chill.
Right. Yeah, I felt an earthquake then. I felt an earthquake in Portland, Oregon, and then I felt an earthquake in Italy, and they were all small, but it's
Yeah.
very interesting feeling. It's a very sinking feeling in the sense that if you don't have anywhere to go, or if you're up 6 floors, or if you're,
You're trapped. Yeah.
you feel very trapped, and
Mhm.
it's kind of scary. Like I say, you guys have earthquakes. What the mid part of the country, they get tornadoes, and we get hurricanes.
Yeah.
Well, at least we know the hurricane's coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
this-
true.
This last
guys-
couple weeks we've gotten hurricanes the last couple
Yeah,
weeks.
but what he's saying is that we can't predict our earthquakes, dude.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I
know
was in
they're
the
coming.
it was 1989. I was a 5-year-old. I was down the street here. I was putting away the toys for the end of the day, and all of a sudden I feel shaking, and I look back
It's
at the structure of the playing structure, and it's just like a blur. It's like
Yeah.
I can't even see it.
It's
and I'm
so
like, what?
funny
And I'm
that
like,
you
"Yeah,"
remember
like,
it and I remember mine. I'm like this in front of the TV on my stomach watching Nickelodeon channel 27, and all of a sudden I just feel like my whole face and everything is just doing this the whole time, and I was like, what the fuck was that? And I look up and my mom's like, that was an earthquake, and I was like, okay, well, fucking Hey Dude's on, like.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
No, what was
Like I
crazy
said,
about that
once I
too is
saw
like,
the little-
well, I mean, the aftershocks were the crazy part. So like it was done. Like went through the big part. I remember I was doing my thing, went on our table, like bookshelves were falling. It was crazy. But like my dad came pick me up, all freaked out. Went back to the house, and there was like aftershocks that were way bigger than anything you've ever felt constantly for like, I want to say like 2 days. They're just like every few hours, it'd be like, "Rrrr." You're like, it's coming. It's like,
I'm sure every time you feel one, you freak out like it's going to
oh
start
no,
again, right?
I have this thing too. I was dating a girl a while ago, and we had one like a 4 point something, maybe 4.5 or something, and I just straight up didn't even know it was happening, and I was like, we were like hanging out, and I ran out of the room, just left her in the dust, and I was down, like it was upstairs somewhere, so I knew that I was upstairs, and I felt this thing shaking. I think I maybe was like, ugh! Said earthquake and like a weird but I was downstairs and in the parking lot before I was like, oh shit, Like I didn't even. I
back
came
in the-
to and was like, I just bailed. It was like this fight or flight response that just took me over, and I ran, and I was gone. And now
Are
I'm
you,
like, after that
are you
experience, I'm not
dating
going
her
to do it.
anymore?
What's that?
Are you still dating her?
Oh
Nope.
no, this was no.
Maybe that's why, huh?
Oh yeah. I think yeah. Nowadays, I'd be like, all right, let's fucking get a plan. I mean, the person I'm
Let's
dating
get
now is
a
from here
plan.
now too. Is from here too, so she would understand exactly. Like, all right,
Yeah.
we have to both do something. Like the person they were like from the fucking Bay Area. That's still a bad one, but still, they weren't from like they didn't have to deal with my childhood thing that I had to deal with as a kid. You know, it's like this. It built in a fight or flight response that I didn't even know I was doing until I was doing it, you know. But anyways, yeah, earthquakes, and I have dreams about tornadoes and hurricanes all the time too. Like that's like my fear is hurricanes and tornadoes, but like I live in an earthquake place, so I never
I
have
have-
earthquake.
My
dreams.
fear's alien shit, dude.
Yeah,
That's like
alien pooping?
that's my nightmares as an adult is a full-on sci-fi blockbuster fucking alien invasion right in my
I think
hometown.
that's more Project Bluebeam guy than an actual alien.
So they made it
invasion.
in my head, to my dreams, dude.
Oh, in your
Fuck,
dreams, you're
dude.
dreaming that? Oh, okay. Jeez.
Yeah, like my
Got into
adult
your
nightmares.
REM.
My rare adult nightmares usually are like alien invasion dreams, dude. They're like blockbuster fucking hits, dude. Like these guys should go in my head right now. They'd have good fucking movies right
I was
now.
gonna say, yeah, you should write a script.
Well, I'll tell you,
Like-
2 days ago, I had a dream about trees falling, and I was like in this forest, and trees were falling, and we had on the forecast rain, 60% chance, and it turned out to be like 80 to 90 mile an hour winds, and I'm living in the forest, and trees are just falling. And I was like, "Am I a psychic now?" Like, I feel like I tapped into that because we've had 3 big storms that have come and hit us. And like the first one was like not what it messed up the beaches and stuff, but it didn't mess a lot of people up. But second
Right.
one was like kind of as bad. It like a lot of landslides and stuff like that. It was bad. And then the third one they didn't even talk about. They're just like, yeah, it's gonna rain. Like you guys know what it's all about now. It's just rain now. It's like, and then it was 80 to 90 mile an hour gusts that were just taking out trees. And like, there's my friends that are living in town now. They have had no power for 4 days now. They're like still like.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. It's like literally it did like the most damage, and they're just like, yeah, it's rain, whatever. You guys get
I
it by
just
now.
love the self-analyzing question of, am I psychic now?
Yeah, right.
Well, I was kind of freaked out because I knew that there was rain coming, and I was like, well, I'm a little PTSD because we just had 2 major storms, and it says Tuesday or Monday rain, and then I had dreams all night about trees falling, and I'm like, am I onto
the
something?
same
I hope
way,
I'm not.
I'm the same way with hurricanes. You know, I went through Hurricane Andrew,
Oh wow.
and that was a pretty big experience. And from that day on, if I know a hurricane's coming, I mean, that night I'm sitting, I'm in a pair of jeans, I got shoes on, I'm ready to run on a second's notice because when they hit, it's like the house just explodes. When we got hit by Andrew, the hurricane shutters were sitting there. We heard a big crash, and basically we had all walked out. Everybody in the house walked out to the center of the house, and right there, first hurricane shutter just goes boom, 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 flies away. Next one flies away. Window blows out. We start, putting doors over the windows, and we'd nail this door across one window and go to the next window, and that door would blow off. And finally, the roof started to tear. So we were standing at a window. I was holding a sofa in front of a window, and I look up, and where the ceiling, where the ceiling meets the wall, it started to crack along that ceiling line, and then it started to crack going back, and that's where you see the roof starts to bounce and pull off. And we're sitting right there at the window. I'm watching the roof start to bounce, so I tell everyone, run to the bathroom. Everyone runs to the bathroom, and me and a gentleman they got evacuated, so a family was staying with us, some friends of ours. So myself and Bill were the last ones to run for the bathroom, and as we're running, the roof tore off. Jesus. And the way the house was, sectioned where you have, one roof going this way, one roof going that way, the bathroom was right in here, and we dove in, and this whole side came off. You know.
Wow.
You've been in a house while the roof is coming off.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was running
Yeah.
from the bathroom
He was
watching that.
just-
stuff.
He was just telling you the hurricane shutters were ripped off the house, so they're called hurricane shutters, and the hurricane ripped them off the house.
God,
Ripped them off. I mean, like if they were
Dang.
like a
man,
paper,
dude.
paper holding the thing. So
Great.
yeah, so it actually tore 2/3 of the house. The roof was off. We all ended up in the bathroom, and we were there for 2 or 3 hours before it passed, because the way that the hurricane, you have the eye, it was spinning in this direction, and we were actually going and looking in the mirror backwards. We were going through the hardest part. We never got the eye. We just got the whole brunt of the storm.
Yeah.
So we stayed in there for 2 or 3 hours, and you'd feel the pressure change as it passes. And I swore it sounded like a jet engine with a locomotive train going right next to it, with a giant taking a tree and breaking a tree, is what it sounded like right out the of the house.
Fuck.
But yeah, so since Andrew, if anything, if I have a hurricane coming or whatever, I'm up in arms, man. And
Yeah, that's what was that. I mean, actually, Ricky Avocado or Ricky. That's not his real name.
You can call him that.
Avocado.
He
What?
was
He
on
called himself Ricky
Great.
Avocado.
Was that the one that happened right before the? Oh my god! Oh god, we have a
Oh,
we have a special
You got a
guest.
little-
We have a Paul Masvidal.
Hey, what's up,
Hey.
Paul?
How's it going,
How you
buddy?
doing,
What's
Paul?
up, dude?
Hey, Paul, dude, what's
Is
going
it
down,
noisy
bro?
as fuck or what? I got my fucking Bluetooth in, but I'm in a fucking loud bar right now. Are we
No, we can hear
You're
you,
good. You're
dude.
good. If you can hear us, it's all good. Yeah. We were just talking about. So I was actually want to ask the question. He was talking about a big hurricane. Was that the hurricane, like Andrew, that you dealt with in '92
Yeah.
that Paul talked about?
Yeah, same hurricane. Ended up we had a bunch of equipment at my house at the time, and you guys came and took it and picked it up
Yeah,
before
well, you
the
lost
storm.
everything. You lost
And
everything.
then I lost
All our
everything.
shit
Yeah.
was at fucking Chuck's house, remember? Like, Sean and I had to
Right.
go up to Chuck's because we had gotten off the human tour. And so I didn't have anything other than like a guitar.
That was
So-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we had basically all our shit. We had just gotten off the human tour. We were back in Miami. Sean and I basically had to go up to Orlando to get our shit because it was fucking thankfully okay, but Miami was wiped out, and Jason ended up fucking holding the ceiling of his bathroom with his grandmother. It was fucking, he lost everything, you know? It was,
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that's right. So you and Sean actually came out and picked up all my guitars. That's what it was, and cleaned them
Yeah.
up for me because they were soaking wet and everything was destroyed.
the
Yeah,
city
but
was
yeah,
wiped
that's
out,
the-
man.
That's the same hurricane that we were talking about. Earlier.
Jesus.
Damn,
That's
man.
crazy, man. God damn. Paul,
Okay.
where are you at right now, Paul?
Hey, dudes. Hey,
Hey, what's
Casey.
up?
What's
What's
up,
up,
bro?
Anthony? Hey, Joel.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
What up,
I'm
brother?
actually in San Francisco right now. I'm right next to
Oh.
a cool coffee shop called Progressive Grounds, but this is actually a lesbian bar in Bernal Heights.
Okay.
yeah.
It's called
Nice.
the Wild West or something. It's like an old saloon. What's it called?
I've probably been there. My cousin
Outside
lived
West.
in Bernal Heights for several years.
Oh, no
okay.
shit. Okay.
Hell
Yeah, so a buddy I was having dinner with who's here, and another buddy's coming. He made me dinner and stuff, an old friend of mine, so we were just hanging out, and this is like in his neighborhood. So, yeah.
Hell
it's
yeah.
cool.
dude.
Awesome, man. I'm stoked you
Yeah.
stopped by, man.
So
Really
since
stoked.
we got you,
Yeah, man.
dude, it'd be cool to talk about what it was like in the studio together with the refocused sessions. I'd love to see both you guys talk about it. Jason, I know you sat in for a little bit of that. Like, what was it like rehashing all that stuff and sculpting it, like, in a sense, you know?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it pretty much. It wasn't like there was that much that we could really do. It's more digitally enhancing everything and bringing out, mids or lows or anything like that. But wouldn't you say, Paul? It wasn't as much.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is Warren, he took everything and rebuilt it from the ground floor, but basically we were trying to stay out of its way because the performances are so thick. Everything is so good with if you just bring up the faders, everything's so on fire that there wasn't a whole lot to like do other than just
Yeah.
like EQ it better. And he also had to get the low end right because the way that Scott kind of tracked the drums especially was he kind of sucked out the low end, which was a very signature thing to do in the 90s because everything was so muddy. But I think he learned a lot making our record. And what something Warren commented on is if you listen to the trajectory of the songs, the drums change. The sound of the drums keep changing because Scott kept modifying things
Throughout
because
the
he was like
recording, yeah.
learning. Yeah, he was like, holy shit, Sean plays with finesse and dynamics, and he's a different kind of drummer. And so he actually made a lot of moves that opened up his eyes because he wasn't doing just extreme death metal with fucking sound replaced and triggers and you know what I mean? It was like super finessey and dynamic, and so it was but he had to recreate the low end because there was none from the original tracking, and he used John's drums to do that. So one of the big differences with this remix is like the bottom. It's like the where it sits is like it has all this like weight as to where Focus Original, which I love how it sounds, but it has that 90s stamp. It's very kind of thin, you know what I mean? The state that everything's very kind of it's all stripped of that body because you're trying to get clarity, you know. But I think we figured it out in a modern way now, where you can kind of still have all that low end and still have the clarity of the top end, you know.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. Is like Paul said, there really wasn't much that changed with levels or anything. Everything is still, if anything, it was just adding the right tones and the right mids or whatever.
Yeah.
And just making it clear. Basically, it's the same
Yeah.
thing, but you can hear a lot more. There was even things I heard that Reinert was doing on the cymbals, and I was like, oh,
Totally. Yeah, like
You know,
there's all these
so-
details that you don't hear on the original record, like a lot of cymbal stuff and bass stuff and the guitars. Like we loved our guitars then, but we wanted to like defizz them a little and make them a little bit more like punchy and clear and stuff. So it was like little things, you know, just
You guys
It's,
are you're reminding me of Mahavishnu Orchestra's remasters going to 180 gram vinyl, people talking about brand new things that they've never heard in the mixes previous to that, and how you guys are influenced by Mahavishnu at that time and all that stuff. I'm like, this is so fucking cool to hear that this is happening right now, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it did for Mahavishnu, you know.
Well, the
dude,
technology
Mahavishnu.
is there,
Yeah.
you know. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with them. It wasn't there back in their day, and I'm sure once they cleared it up, and I'm sure you could hear all kinds of different minute, you know,
Yeah.
Totally.
details and music.
And
And it's
so
funny, like I
beautiful.
said, we heard stuff that we've never heard before. So I would
Yeah,
think
Yeah.
that listeners
Oh,
would hear
dude.
something.
I mean,
Oh, if you isolate the drums and bass on Focus, which I would like to put out at some point, it's its own world. That
Yeah.
it's like you just take the guitars and vocals out, and that shit is so sick. It sounds so rad.
I'm
It's
just
like-
like blown away right now because
This is
now
like-
I'm thinking about the fact that like, okay, you as Cynic created Focus, but the technology that was used to record that music has not made it that fully available to you even as the artist after it's recorded. So
Yeah.
it's being like uncovered archaeologist style, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Thanks to the
we're like-
technology.
yeah.
It's
True,
like
man.
we're anthropologists, like we're digging
Yeah.
through
Way
the dirt
from-
again, dude.
That's
you know,
funny, man. Totally.
And it's true, and it's just little minute details, but it's those
Yeah.
little things that stand out. You know what I mean? That you're like, oh wow, I never caught that. So that's very
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, dude, there's so many crazy things Jason and I did guitar-wise where it's like, holy shit, I forgot, like, even, like, weird outtake-y things, like, that, like, we were like, oh, yeah, that thing that we didn't use and that thing, and, you know what I mean? Like, So it's yeah, a lot of experimenting happened in the studio. I mean, we found that record making it. You know what I mean? Like we showed up prepared, but we were prepared with our 4 tracks, you know, in our little home studios. Like the difference is, and I was talking to Jason about this earlier, it was like you couldn't demo things and hear detail like you can now with a fucking, you know, a Logic or Pro Tools rig or whatever you're using. Like back then, you had 4 tracks or 8 tracks, and you couldn't hear shit clearly until you got in the studio. So then you get in the studio, and it's like, holy shit, that guitar part, that's how it sounds against this guitar part with this vocal and this bass line, and suddenly it sounds like a different piece of music. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? You know? So we were figuring out as we went, and some things didn't work. Some things were just like we hit brick walls, and we were like, holy shit, that doesn't work, bro. You know, and we fought, and you know what I mean? We were fucking, it was a journey, man.
My question to you right now, Paul, is why didn't you go take a bite? You know? Go get it. Oh, he doesn't. I forgot. He wasn't here for it earlier.
It was
I don't remember it though.
From the dogs and the training. Jason was doing. Jason was telling us about how he trained dogs.
Oh my god, I know. Jason's a fucking dog whisperer.
What? Say that again. Where'd he go? Oh, he disappeared, dude.
Put him on the spot.
Oh,
I know. He just bails.
I can still hear the background. You can still hear him.
Dude, hey, no, I literally just got a call from a friend who's coming. No, so Jason is very humble about this, but Jason's a proper dog whisperer. He he's the original dog whisperer.
We learned that tonight.
I swear
you.
you.
Definitely learned it.
Dude, that motherfucker, like, he'll meet a dog and immediately will, like, communicate with it. It's trippy, man. Like, he has a gift with animals, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Always been good with animals,
yeah. I mean, we all love animals, but Jason was, like, fucking skilled, like, ninja shit, like, and yeah, that's how he survived when we were kids. He was fucking paying the bills, fucking training dogs. It was
Joseph had the great question of what he was doing, you know, to make ends meet during all that, and that's when we got to learn that Jason is a dog whisperer, animal whisperer,
legit, bro.
General.
Yeah,
animal whisperer, really.
I was telling him that remember Sean and Jose came out and took bites, and then one time Lisa Armstrong came out and took a bite and all that, and they were wondering why you never did.
I wonder why. You know, maybe I was scared. I don't know. I remember I had a cousin who had fucking pit bulls, and
I'd be fucking
he was
scared too.
all about making them mean and shit. So I had some, but I had dogs as a kid and stuff, and
yeah, you're.
I don't know. I mean, no, I mean, so I don't know. I mean, it was one of those things. Maybe it was just a timing thing. I was
just never happened.
That was like
Well, Jason really said he started doing that because he was an adrenaline junkie, you know. So you got to really be ready to be attacked by an animal if you're gonna take that gig, you know.
You do. Yeah, you have to not be afraid. I mean, I'll even tell you a story when we were doing the refocus stuff. We were doing it, you know, at our friend Stephen Gibbs' studio, which is like where, you know, it's like Gibbs' house in Miami Beach, and he had a dog that's like, you know, it's been kind of, they've been trying to train this pit bull basically, and Jason and I went for a walk with it, and he immediately like understood it, knew what to do. And this dog has been like a thing with these people, like with Stephen and his wife forever, like trying to figure out how to get a hold of it, you know? And Jason was like, I know exactly what this dog needs. And I was like, fucking, can I pass your number along to them? You know, it's like,
yeah. That's cool, dude. I mean, that's kind of the thing that I tripped on was how you make a connection with a different species that doesn't speak your language, you know?
Yeah.
How do you?
Yeah. No, Jason could have like a Twitch on that shit. You could have a fucking Twitch on teaching people.
Yeah,
like
dude. I mean, the other dog whisperer doesn't do shows anymore. Why don't you jump on and
I know.
for the new generation, dude?
Right? No, I did it for so long. It comes out whenever I get around a friend and, I see their dog or whatever, I can instantly see the challenges that they're having at their house. If I stop by a friend's house, and I always help people out. I always end up telling them what to do, or I just did it too long, or too long not to remember it all. But yeah, it's funny. I like with the situation with Paul, I just saw the challenges that the dog have, and it's simple. Once you can understand the psychology of the dog, then you can, figure out how to get them to understand what you want them to understand, But,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So okay, let's move away from dogs again. Let's go
yeah.
back into the timeline. So let's talk about Portal, because that's actually a really good. That's a perfect time for us to start because it's post Cynic. You got we with Paul's episode, we kind of already know about how Cynic kind of dissolved into Portal, but I want to know about how your experience with Portal was, because I heard Paul's, but I'd like to hear yours as well. And since you're here together, you guys can talk about that together.
Yeah. Well, my experience with Portal, we were taking a different approach. We just didn't have the best, experience with the Focus tour. We came back, like we said, let's try something different. Let's try something more radio friendly. Something that could sell or could be played on the radio and go a different direction and not have the heavy vocals and all that. And it was a good experience. Like I really enjoyed working with Chris Kringle and Aruna Abrams. She's a amazingly talented gal, and Chris as well. And so it was interesting. So I really liked the songs with Portal. I really liked the tunes and all that. But again, I actually I was a little bored, after coming off playing all the stuff that we played with Focus and everything like that. I'm glad we did it. It was a completely different side and a completely different direction, and actually gained interest. I think it was Atlantic was looking at us for that album, if I remember correctly. But no, I think it was a great experience. I think it was crazy that album just sat in the closet for how many years. It was a pretty much a finished album, demo, recorded 2 different demos, but finished album for I don't know how many years was it, Paul, until that got finally released after we recorded it.
I think Paul's a little busy right now talking to somebody else.
I don't know. Oh, he's gone.
That's okay.
He's-
We can chime
That's
back.
okay. So yeah, but it was a great experience. It was definitely a different album. I wish we would have gotten the opportunity to work with Atlantic. Atlantic was actually shopping us, but we couldn't get off the contract with Roadrunner Records, so we lost that deal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's good music. I think it's well done, and it was a good change and all that. But I don't know if I would have lasted long for me. I got bored with it pretty quick, playing it wise, because I always love to be challenged, I guess, when I play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
Which is understandable and respectable.
You still there? Oh, I lost you for a second. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll just say that the 3 Portal songs that are on the Focus re-release. So I heard those pretty much within, days of first hearing Cynic, and
Oh, interesting.
and it was so cool. So to me, there was no delay between the 2 projects. It was presented in the CD re-release as truly what it was, the next band, and just those 3 songs. But those 3 songs are just gorgeous, man. Cosmos, The Circle's Gone, and Endless
Endeavors. Yeah.
And I stand by those, just being amazing record or amazing songs. And then it was cool to finally hear the demo, the full, it's called the Portal tapes, I guess, but the full album later on. But there's something special about those 3 songs in particular, and I think that the way that the re-release came out with just those 3 included was really cool. A really good decision on behalf of the re-release team. So
yeah, I think that's what kind of sparked being able to release the whole, album later, which
Mhm.
was, releasing those 3 songs. And again, I think they were great. It was our shot at playing something commercially viable at that time. We were thinking, let's do something that maybe could get on the radio, or we could maybe survive off this, because that was a big problem. We came off the Focus tour. We were broke, just as broke as when we left. And of course, as we've talked about, or it's been mentioned before, we didn't have, the full support of all the fans at that time.
Mhm.
So it was a hard run. So we said, let's do something that can get on the radio. And it was something that it wasn't necessarily something that we were all wanting to do on the side already. It was like, focus, let's do something that can be radio friendly. And that's why we even got had a gal singing with us too, and lost the heavy vocals, and one solo per song. You know what I mean? It was a totally different approach, and interesting after coming. Totally different approach, especially after an album as busy as Focus was, to go to something that simple was an interesting change,
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I think that there are, and that's probably a better question for Paul, but there are a lot of elements in Portal that you hear in the Cynic
It's back.
after Focus. I think there's a tie there.
I definitely think there's a bridge to Portal, and you can hear it in like the Holdsworth influenced, clean, atmospheric side of Cynic that kind of was like pushed into Portal, plus what you guys wanted to do with it. But yeah, I think that was the bridge. There is like that clean atmospheric guitaring shit that you guys were doing in between.
Right.
And I loved hearing because I've told you guys I'm the biggest fanboy. Like, Cynic has been my favorite band for the longest time. So anything that it branches off of that Cynic tree, it's for me.
Right. Right.
And I will love it. I will love it. I love everything.
Gordian Knot as well.
Love it all.
Yep.
Both albums, love it. And Sean's I can't pronounce it, but his solo record, the one that was before Gordian Knot, that's a great record too, dude. It's a chord. It's like CORD.
Portland,
Yeah, that record is fucking amazing, guys. If you haven't heard Sean Malone's solo record before the Gordian Knot shit, you do yourself a favor and go find it. It's readily available on YouTube, I'm sure. It's a fun listen from front to back for sure.
Yeah, he was an amazing musician, that's for sure. The guy was all talent.
Yeah, and I've re-listened to Gordian Knot recently because I'm on these long drives back and forth every week, and that's another thing too, is just I felt really tapped into Malone mainly, even though I was hearing all you guys playing with Malone. I just know that this was his brainchild, and I wanted to really tap into his vibe when I'm listening to it, and oh my god, it really shows Sean Malone when you get on that level while listening to that stuff.
Yeah, and that definitely was his baby.
Yes,
just
and you can feel it, dude.
Yeah, and working with him on Emergent, he would same thing, would write the song structure. He would write the skeleton, and then I would put the guitars over the top.
Mm-hmm.
But it was his gig, so I would come in with a rhythm, and and 90% of the stuff he liked or whatever, but he'd go, okay, actually, let's try it, put the accent on this beat, or try changing this, or, and he would vamp it, which was cool. It was like his project. It was like, tell me what you want to hear, or what you want me to play, and I'll, we revise it. So I would write the music, and then when we get together and we'd record it, we'd play it 5 different ways before he goes, okay, that's the one that I want to keep, or that's the one I'm going to take.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
But it
love
was
that too.
his baby, him on the fretless and then on the Chapman stick. You know, I mean the guy on I don't know anyone that
He's the reason why I know about the instrument in the first place, and then
Yeah.
made me follow that rabbit hole down and
Yeah.
find other guys that are Chapman stick players as well. But it was you guys and Sean Malone that introduced me to this new instrument, you know.
and it
And
was
still to this day, you don't see
it.
it in many bands at all in our realm.
You don't, and a lot of people that you see playing the Chapman stick aren't really that proficient. He was pretty damn proficient on the instrument in comparison to
He
a lot
was
of players.
he was proficient on piano. Malone was a multi-instrumentalist. Like Reiner would always say that Sean Malone understands my drumming better than I do.
Wow.
And
Wow.
like
Yeah.
he had such deep musical knowledge. You know what I mean? It was like ridiculous. And I always think about this, which is when we went to make Trace de Air, Malone got robbed. He was living in at a university, and his room, I guess, wherever he was, a little apartment he was renting, got robbed. They stole everything. It was all on hard drives, and he had apparently like another couple records of Gordian knot type shit that is gone. That he never.
I know, dude. You
So he
talked
was-
about it, dude. I was like, oh, I was gut. I
Yeah.
was hitting the gut when you said that, dude.
And when he and like Jason was saying, he was so precise in his compositions. Like people haven't heard half of his classical music, but he wrote all these chorales and symphonic things. He was analyzing Bach's music. Like he was genius, scholar, professor, but also had this weird like anomalous sense of like deep feeling and like unorthodox creativity. It wasn't just like academic. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
he straddled that line. He was like a Jocko. You know what I mean? It was like totally
Yeah.
a fucking master, but also like outside the box, you know?
Right.
And he fucking, dude, I remember when I did some Gordian knot stuff, like he was like, okay, do a solo, don't end the note on F sharp on this bar. I was like, oh my God, like that's the one note I want to fucking end this solo on. Like he knew, you know what I mean?
He knows,
like, but he was so meticulous, you know? It was
Yeah.
and when he would send bass parts, like when we were working on new songs, I'll send him a riff or something. He'd send me like 5 to 10 different versions of how to approach the bass. And
Wow.
he would turn the beat upside down. He would turn the melody upside down. Like he knew how to like invert things because as the bass player that's holding down the harmony and the rhythm, the groove where things sit beyond the drummer, it was like he had this mastery of composition that was like, it's so hard to, it's such a incredible, I feel so lucky that I got to fucking jam with somebody like that and work on music because he was so high level, dude. It was ridiculous, man. Yeah.
That's
He
beautiful, man.
wasn't he a PhD in music composition? He finally got his PhD,
Yes, he
if I
was.
was correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did before.
Wow. PhD.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
That's serious.
He had come up to me and asked me about one of my solos on Focus. I think it was I'm But a Wave 2 or whatever. And he says you end the solo with with a B note. And I'm like, okay, thanks for telling me. Is there any reason you're telling me I ended in a B note? I didn't realize I ended in a B note. And he goes, because it's not in the key. And he goes, it's not in the key, so why did you play it? And I said, because it sounded good. He goes, it's brilliant. He goes, I love it, but it's just not in key.
That's awesome.
He knew everything.
Yeah.
That was going
Yeah,
on
and he was willing to break the rules. And he was willing to break the rules.
Totally.
That's the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to know the rules to be able to break them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Not
Definitely.
necessarily, but
I guess no, you can break the rules without knowing them.
You don't.
I was
when
trying to
you-
me being
yeah.
trying to be profound, and I fucked it up.
let's look at philosophical.
No, that's a quote. We all know that one.
You have to ask
I have
Joseph.
to hang up, you guys, though. I gotta go.
All right, dude.
All right.
Paul,
thank you for
thanks
showing up, Paul.
man, dude.
Love you, buddy.
Yeah, Yeah,
Rock
I'm
on.
glad I
You're
got
in
to say
San
hi though.
Francisco,
Nice to
dude.
see you,
I
Jason.
Oh, yeah.
I should be getting a text message from you soon since you're in San Francisco, bro. All right, have a good time tonight.
Anthony is on
This
his
was
way.
a quick
Actually.
trip. It was a spontaneous thing. I was in
It's all
Santa
good,
Rosa,
dude. I'm
you
just
know.
fucking around, dude. I'm just fucking around.
I know. No, we
Have a
gotta
good
hang
time,
though,
dude.
man.
You do.
Yeah, hell
But
yeah.
Yeah.
rock on, brother. Thank you so much for popping in,
Yeah.
dude.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
too,
dude.
man.
See you,
Good stuff.
Paul.
Oh,
Have a
yeah,
good
dude.
rest of your
Well,
night, dude.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah,
Love
man.
you, buddy.
I'll see
Love
you
you, buddy.
guys. See you,
Hell yeah,
Jason.
dude. Yeah.
See you,
Bye-bye.
brother.
Later, Paul.
See you, man.
Jeez.
Yeah, dude.
That was cool.
There we go.
Cool.
Nice
Pop
of
in
him to
for
drop in.
Paul, dude.
Yep.
Say hello.
That was
There we
cool,
go.
man.
Yeah.
I
But
was.
yeah, it's
yeah.
cool to see you guys to riff on, the dude that you guys loved and jammed with, and hear his small things that he did well and that no one really is ever gonna know. He was very. I remember like looking one time for a interview with him. Like I just want to hear his voice, like as like there was like nothing. There was one base clinic where or it might have been a Chapman Stick clinic where he like spoke for a second. I'm like, okay, that's what his voice sounds like. I had no idea that he was so quiet to himself, and you guys
He
knew
was
him.
such a soft-spoken guy, very
Yeah.
soft-spoken person, and it's funny. Even I've been going through a lot of old footage, old Cynic footage, and even in the old footage, there's very little that you catch of him talking. And I don't know if he was just magic at avoiding the camera, because we all talked, and we were all in the middle of these conversations, and he was too. But man, he just has a way of avoiding talking on camera, I guess. And it's funny because he was a PhD, so he was, in order to get your PhD, you actually have to teach master classes. So I remember he was Professor Malone in the University of Oregon when we were working on Gordian Knot. I would actually go and stay at his teacher's apartment, and we would record in the apartment. But extremely articulate, extremely well spoken, but just very humble and very soft spoken. Just a guy that definitely chose his words. Definitely chose his words. But a brilliant. I mean, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant person in so many ways.
So what do you? I mean, like there's a dynamic of a band hanging out and stuff and touring and all those fun memories and stuff. Like, what was it like? Like, cause I know nothing. I know you and Paul, like pretty much, and Sean and the other Sean. But for him, he was kind of like you said, he was kind of like the mysterious figure. Like, what was he? Did he ever joke around? Was there like, was there things that made him laugh more than? Yeah.
He had a good sense of humor, and his jokes were funny, but clever. Very clever, thought out, like that type of personality. But like even on tour. So on tour, there was a lot of partying. I mean, mostly people drinking beer and smoking pot. That was, like the biggest thing, and other stuff on thing. But I remember, always the smoking and the partying bothered him, because he didn't partake in either. And he would get up before a lot of the people on the bus would wake up, and he would go out and check out the area and the city sometimes on his own, and just kind of have his own time or whatever. So in those ways, he was a little quiet, but no, he was normal. He wasn't the guy that was going to be running around making all the noise. There was always someone else willing to do that, and Sean would be reserved, standing there just kind of observing everything, and he'd be in the conversation or whatever, but he's not boisterous or anything like that. He's just a very etiquette-wise, very proper etiquette-wise person. That makes sense.
Yeah. That's very cool. Just so good.
Oh, I just was going to say, I wish I could have studied with Sean and been his student at university. That would have been very cool.
Yeah.
And, and he tried to teach me. So again, I'm horrible at theory. Most of my playing is just ear player and all that, and so he would always try to help me with theory and stuff like that. And he was just a great teacher. You know what I mean? He was very patient, and he had a lot of students that had passed, through the time that I knew him, or especially at the University of Oregon and all that. But yeah, he was definitely special. I think, especially if you're a bass player and or any musician, to have been coming up and study under him would have been an amazing experience. He would have been the guy that you could come up to with anything. Like Paul said, that he knows all the rules, but he could also stand outside the box. So he would have been a really cool guy to study under. I bet it's funny because when we did the Gordian Knot album, he had called me up and he had asked me, about playing on there, and I said, where are you? And he goes, I'm over at the University of Oregon, which was like a 2-hour drive from where I was in Portland.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I go, so what are you doing now? And he's like, well, I'm working towards my PhD. And that's how I found, I knew he was teaching master classes. So I said, aren't you teaching master's classes? And he goes, yeah. And I go, don't you have some sick student there that could just like fucking shred? And I mean, why the heck are you asking me to play on your album at this point? And he'd said that he goes, all the students, he goes, if I asked them to write something, I could pretty much take their piece and go into the theory book, turn to the page, and go, okay, that's exactly where this came from. And he says, but you just play what you hear, or play what you hear is appropriate for music. And I think that's where Sean and I could relate the most, was out of the box, because I couldn't get in the box because I was horrible at at theory or anything like that. And yeah, and that's why he actually had asked me to play on the album, because and that's why I think it's always been a one of the benefits for me musically, is my lack of theory is never made me have any rules. I never had to play by any rules. Play whatever I want, whatever I hear, and that's what it's been said to me a lot. Is I always play what's appropriate for the music. But that's how I ended up on there, on Gordian Knot. Interesting, just mentioning the schooling and all that. But yeah, he was brilliant. He would have been wonderful for anyone to study under, and anybody that I know that has really appreciates the time. And he just had so much information to give. He would overwhelm the students. Not overwhelm them in a bad way, but overwhelm them in how much can you absorb? Because I got a lot to give you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we heard he had his own book that he was lost on his hard drive, or because he got broken into. That was the story that we heard from Paul.
He lost. So if I heard correctly, Paul said that he had another 2 Gordian Knot albums already written on that hard drive. But I remember when that happened, I didn't know about the Gordian Knot, but he had lost he not only lost that, he lost his full catalog, his full music catalog.
Yeah. And
I think he was up like plus 60 albums that he played on, and like and then he had lost I think a lot of his literature, because he wrote some books.
He was getting ready to put a book out. He literally was putting a book out, and it was done, and it was on that hard drive.
And he had a lot of interesting, that I remember. I had lost contact with him or not lost contact, but just you had your separate ways and you talk here and there. But I remember that I got an email from him, and I was like, "Oh, yo, man, it's been a while. What's up? La la la." I said, "Hey, why don't we call sometime and chat so we can catch up?" And he goes, "Well, you got to give me the exact time and day of when you can call because I need to make sure that I'm by the phone. And I'm like, by the phone? And he's like, yeah, I don't have a cell phone. I only use a landline.
Whoa.
And long story short, he had he told me he had some problem with like identity theft. Like someone had tried to steal his identity, and and then so he um, just shut down everything, and he only used his email and a landline, and he called me. We ended up chatting and all that,
Yeah.
but yeah, so he had some interesting experiences that I know that affected him. The identity type theft type thing, and then the having his stuff stolen. That was a really hard one on him, but he definitely was not easy to find or get in contact with all the time. You could
Yeah.
send an email and hear from him in a little while, and it was back and forth. Now, of course, I got out of the scene, music scene, for quite a few years, raised my two kids, and um, did all that. So my uh, time with Malone after Gordy and Knot was just sparsely here or there. So Paul may have a different,
Yeah.
version on that, but yeah, a lot of those things affected him, and he was just very hard to find, and he would kind of fade in and fade out of social networking or socializing with people,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So he was an interesting guy, man. He was a wonderful person and brilliant. Um,
Totally.
Again, I can't say that enough. Brilliant, but definitely not your run of the mill character.
Hmm. I wish I could have had a conversation with him just to pick that brain a little bit,
Yeah,
But
there's lots of
you had mentioned getting out of the scene and raising a couple kids. So I mean, was that brought on by the Cynic dissolving, portal dissolving, and then
yeah. So basically, um, when Focus didn't go through, and then when the portal thing fell through, we pretty much split up
hmm
at that point. And I really didn't want anything to do with the music industry. The music industry stole my creative flair, if that makes
hmm
sense. The
it
business
does.
side of
It
it
does.
took away my creative. So I said to myself, you know what? I want to enjoy music for me. So if I
Yeah,
can't do it for everyone else's enjoyment, I can just sit in my room. I got the Pro Tools. I can write, record, and play music, and so I basically got out of it professionally um, for a few years until I ended up doing the Gordian Knot album, and then ended up not doing anything until recently, until just a couple
so
years ago or
so the
whatever. I started
Gordian
doing
knot was the last thing you were really involved in, huh?
Gordian Knot was the. Let me make sure, was the last thing I was really involved in. Since then, I did that song with Robin and Timon, um,
Oh yeah.
Broken Eggshell Repair Kit.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
that was the solo that I did on there. That was the first of me playing professionally, I guess, since Gordian Knot. So
So
I had.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say from so you obviously never stopped playing though. So in your time in between then, what was your regimen? Would you play 2, 3 times a week, every day, or
I would go from playing every day to playing once every 2, 3 months. It depended
really?
on where I was at, and that's the same way. It's interesting now. I take breaks. I don't play consistently.
Hmm.
It's got to be the energy has to be there, and the creative spark has to be there.
Right.
Um, and I think that sometimes letting it settle and not just stepping away from the instrument sometimes gives you a better perspective when you come back again. Gives
I
you a fresher
agree.
perspective. So yeah, I've never been one about well, I've never been good studiously, so I've never been good with theory. I've never been good with doing my homework and doing my repetition practicing, or rudimental practicing. I've always been bad with that. It's just play and be creative when the energy is there.
I tend to really enjoy projects that are played from feel and heart and soul. Obviously there are plenty of projects that I like where people do hit the books and they know how to write their songs in a certain way, but when it just goes off of feel and it feels right, it tends to resonate deeply with a lot more people, I think.
The intent is more sincere, and I think it comes out in the music. If you really enjoy it and feel good when you play it, and that was the reason I got out of music, and the reason I got back into music um, was to do it for enjoyment. And so,
Yeah.
in me coming back and like doing this project with Amnion in Germany, and I got another project in LA, but that's all on hold, and I'll say more about that maybe sometime later.
Mhm.
But in coming back to music, I said to myself, before I'll do anything professionally, I will not go back and I one don't want to get signed to a record company ever again.
Yeah.
I'd rather do
Mhm.
something independent. And if I don't enjoy it, I'm not playing it. So, some people, would ask me to do a solo or would ask me to play on something. And I tell them, listen, I'm open. Send me the music. If I feel I can contribute to it, and if I can feel like I have I hear the spark and that I can contribute to that music, then we can talk about playing it. But if I don't have the interest or don't have the spark, even if it's a paid project, I don't want it. Because I don't want to lose the creative side of
Right.
enjoying playing music. So I work other
Yeah.
jobs so I can play what I want to play and fuck playing anything I don't want to play. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's fucking
I
awesome.
think your music comes out more sincere that way.
Yeah.
You can't make a living off of it, but it comes out more sincere. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, the more sincere your intent of music, the more people, for some reason, seem to be able to relate to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Then yeah. Exactly. Then you separate that from your art, and you make the best art. It's like true to your creativity. Not
And also it's
like,
something that you would never want to do something that you would never be you'd be like, oh, I never want to listen to that again.
yeah.
You'd be like, oh, I felt that. I want to see, what I want to re-listen to something that I contributed to and be like, oh yeah, that's what I was feeling when I wrote that.
Exactly. Exactly. Not forced. Not forced.
Yeah.
Well, we are over 3 hours. Uh,
Wow.
Jason, I mean, we can keep talking if you want to because I can keep digging into you all night, dude. But
I'm
if
fine.
not,
Whatever you guys want. Like I said, I can talk, or we could call it whatever. If you guys have more questions, I'm willing.
okay, then my last question would be literally just so after focus and all that stuff, what have you been doing that what's the passion in your life post music besides music? And I know we talked animals, but moving on and out of animal training and all that stuff, what have you been passionate about up until this
Well,
point?
I had substituted some of the music with photography and art. Actually,
Okay.
was what I
Oh,
was
nice.
doing in between on those off times. I would still have my ability to play. I still had Pro Tools or Logic, whatever I was using at the time. Um, but I actually had opened a photography business, and I had a photography business for a few years, and that was fun. But I got tired of shooting the same old, uh, scenarios. I wanted to do stuff that was a little bit more artistic. So I ended up making some art for a while, and I was um, had some art available. Actually, I had sold one for an album cover. I'd sold a few pieces here and there, but basically it was through the photography. I was taking big tanks of water, basically setting up strobes and lights around it, and then dropping all different colors and food colors and different sorts of paints and stuff, and actually photographing it while it was falling in the different colors and the different shapes, and then would take that and do post production and Photoshop and butterfly them and enhance them and do all kinds of stuff, and was basically producing art for fun. That's about the
Nice.
only thing. Photography and art, and then whatever animal stuff I never can get around.
That's sick, dude.
Okay, now I said that was my last question, but my question to you right now is, what pets do you currently have right now?
Right now, just a few cats that live outside. I don't even have an indoor pet right now.
Okay.
The dog thing I did so heavily, and owning a dog, you can't travel. You can't leave, you can't travel as much or whatever. So that's one of the reasons I don't have a dog. I still love dogs.
Reminds me
Right.
of call PetSmart Hotel tomorrow. God damn it.
Pet
But
hotel
yeah,
tomorrow.
Yeah.
so I've got a bunch of stray cats that have adopted me. So they come over and they
That's
eat every day, every night, and
They catch
I've
your
got
vibe, dude. They're like, this is the guy to go to right here.
they see a sucker, sucker born right when they see me. They know I'm going to feed them. But my thing is if you show up, I'll give you some food. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
So I'll have one night I'll have 4 cats, another night I'll have 8 that'll show up, wanting to eat or whatever. But yeah, that's about it for animals right now.
Right on.
That's for me at the shelter. Like I can't just go to the shelter. Like let's go look at the animals. That's
Yeah,
not
no.
a thing.
No, don't ever do that.
I'll take an animal or 2 home. Like I can't just like go like, let's go look
Yeah.
at the cat that's or the dog that's like, oh dude, come on. Like what's up, dude? I'm stuck in this thing. And I was like, I have to take them. I have to take one at least. Like or else I feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
It's so sad, man. There's so many.
know.
So many. So I actually have got a couple neighbors, and what we do is we trap them, and we get them either neutered or spayed. They offer a free service here, and then we cut them loose, and between the 2 or 3 of us, they got like a buffet. They just kind of bounce from house to house, whatever they're in the mood for. But but it's sad. There's so many out there, and there's so many in the shelters. And,
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on a part of it, which is a lot of people who say, "Oh, I want a pet," and then after the honeymoon phase is over, they're done.
Yeah. Which
No,
is
like
very
you're an
common.
outside cat on you're an outside cat on 4th of July. It's like then they run away forever. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, where it's like I've had a roommate before that had an amazing cat, and she left him out on 4th of July, and that was obviously the last time we saw the cat because you have to on those kind of like explosion days, you have to really keep them in because they're gonna bail.
Yeah.
The cat never came back.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. No, I was like, came home and was like, oh, he's still gone 3 days later. I'm like, what the fuck? Did you leave him out on 4th?
If you put yourself in the cat's position, you're like, okay, this is the people, or this is my shelter, and then all of a sudden they put me out, and there's explosions everywhere.
Yeah.
Fuck those people. I'm out, dude. They didn't.
It's like, oh, you're 2 years old. Here's Vietnam. What do you think about that? What do you think about Vietnam? Is that chill? But yeah, no, it's like they're just freak out and they're only like down to their devices. That's all they have, So it sucks. Yeah. But Jason, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Dude, this is so fucking fun, dude.
Like,
I had a great time
you.
tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun chatting with you guys.
Hell yeah, dude. Jason, I'd love to keep in touch with you, bro. And I am excited for all the new releases or new projects. You mentioned one that we can't really talk about right now. That's exciting. You got 2 things that are coming down the pike, and I'm excited for both of them, dude. So
yeah, thank you so much. It's been a while, and it's been interesting. It seems like it's much harder to get people to play these days, So on these projects, I have actually 3 projects that have either been delayed or just put back. I had actually hoped to have some music out actually over a year ago, and just I don't know what the climate is now with the music industry or whatever, but it just seems like everything has taken a little longer. But I am excited to get some new music out for people to listen to, and hope that everyone enjoys it. You know what I mean? Be fun to see, but I wish I could have gotten it out a little quicker.
It's all good, dude.
You've
Hey,
inspired so many people, man. Thank you for
definitely.
like yeah.
Yeah,
being
thanks
who
for
you
the
are.
years of inspiration.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
And don't worry about when it's gonna come out, dude. We're ready for it whenever it does, dude. We're not gonna be.
So much.
But yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited.
Hell yeah.
we are too, dude. And thank you, Jason. And again, thank you so much for all of your time. I know it's very late for you, dude. So thanks for sticking it out
Thank
and
you so
hanging out with us, dude.
You
And,
got
and
it, guys. Thanks.
you're more than welcome to come back on when those projects drop if you want to,
Yeah,
plug
yeah,
them and
for
all
sure.
that stuff.
That would be cool. That would be cool for sure.
Yeah,
and
dude.
and thanks for having me, and thanks for going down memory lane with me. That was kind of
That was
interesting,
awesome.
and
Totally,
brought back
dude.
some good memories. And
Hell yeah.
yeah, I look forward to the next time. I really appreciate it, guys.
Rock on,
All right.
Jason, dude.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
All right, one more time. Let's do the plugs real quick. BattleForgeCoffee.com. Get your caffeine over there. CaliDeathPodcast.BigCartel.com. Get your apparel there. And then we got wait, don't tell me. It's the rehearsal studio. It's fuck, I forgot it. Dude. Generator, dude. It's
Is that
GeneratorRehearsalStudios.com.
Joel did that?
Actually, dude, I've only had
gotta
two
be Joel.
Topo Chicos tonight, guys, because a legend
No,
was
I
on
was
and I did
rating
not
someone.
want to get fucking crazy.
Funny.
Then the Archaic tour. Let's pop
That's
that
me.
flyer up one more time. Boom. Get
Nice.
out to any of those dates that I still can't see. Find the date, find the place, and be there. And support your underground death metal. And we love you guys so much, dude. Sick dude. ... And
That's
have a great
good
rest.
website.
Have a great weekend, and we will always be here next week.
Fuck yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Rock on, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you
Peace.
so much.
Thank you, buddy.